people will have to tell me if this is working or not. It says waiting for random internet guy, so I think it might be working.
Oh, I got a notification. Watch live now, R+L. I have notifications turned on for your channel.
If this is working or not. It's working. Okay, and it can hear it. So
Wait,
it's doing things. It's doing things. Okay. So
sorry,
yeah.
I gotta go. Random internet guy is live. I'm gonna dip out and go watch him instead.
That was a great opening bit. Thank you, Captain Time. So in case you can't tell, I have guests here with me. I have Captain Time from at Captain Time Stories on YouTube, and I have Mira Reads from at Mira Reads on YouTube. Unless you have a different extension, but I thought your extension was at Mira Reads.
Yes, it is.
So say hi to everybody, and everyone in chat, say hi. If you guys are there, and let us know if you can hear us, and I can adjust the sound within the stream. So everybody give some conversation. Yeah, give some conversation and chat. Let us know if you can hear us, and then we will dive into some of these questions.
Yeah, I love that beat of like
hi.
Yeah, people are saying hi. I can see it. Okay, cool.
Your viewer count is in the double digits.
Arthurian,
this is a wild success.
Arthurian, yeah, no, it's a lot more success than I thought. Arthurian Historian says he can hear people. That's good. Arthurian Historian, I know you said you were going to be like reenacting. I don't know if you're free today and you ever feel like jumping in, but you also can holla and jump in, and I can send you a link to get into the Interesting Nerd Club here, because that's where I'm borrowing their recording chat from, so like we can host all the people. Okay, Yggdrasil said he didn't hear anything until he reloaded the page. All right, I'm just gonna assume that we're being heard. I'm gonna assume it's all working, and let's look at some of these questions that I got. And we'll start off with the ones on YouTube, because I left a forum, but not everyone went to the forum, so I think I didn't make it very clear that you could go to the forum. So the first question that I got submitted from YouTube was, which POV character do you think is the most thematically important, and why? And additionally, which POV the character most greatly affected your perspective on life? Which I think are interesting questions.
Time to psychoanalyze.
Yeah. So So I'll have to think on that just for a brief second. But so most thematically important. Woo. That's a hard call. But I'm gonna go with a really weird one on this one. I think at least one of the most thematically important characters to the overall message of the story actually is Jon Snow, because Jon Snow picks peace. He picks peace with the wildlings, and because he's choosing to make peace and choosing to determine that these groups of individuals are in fact human beings and worthy of being treated like human beings, I think that that's actually a huge part of what the series is supposed to be harping on thematically. Like, I think that's a big running theme, is that we can include people in the group of who's human, and we can humanize all the people, and we don't need to, create all these divisions that cause us to constantly fight. Like, I think that George R. Martin, his head's just kind of in that space. So I don't know if you guys want to give. Do you guys want to give your favorite, or not favorite, your most thematically important character? While I respond to a Discord chat here really quick.
Yeah, absolutely. So mine is Littlefinger, and that's all I have to say. I can pass
But
it on.
POV.
No,
POV.
Littlefinger. Just Littlefinger all the way. Doesn't even matter.
Okay.
His greatness transcends Martin's writing. I'm passing it over to Mira Reads.
All right. So I'm gonna be a lit major here. I am Mira Reads. I would say it depends on the theme. There are a lot of themes, but one that I think is most striking is Arya, in terms of the theme of pacifism. I mean, R+L and I are in agreement there that's one of the major themes, because not really so much based on Arya's choices, but in her moments of extreme lack of agency, We see her march to Harrenhal. We see so much of what goes on with Tywin's army and the sellsword companies later on. We see what happens to ordinary people when war comes, and that is, I would say, probably the most important point that Gurm is driving at.
Yeah, Arya is a good one. I like that. I like that choice. So, yeah, I think I definitely would agree with you. She is very thematically important to what George R. R. Martin is kind of trying to instill in the audience and the reader, for the series. So, which POV most greatly affected your perspective on life is the second half of this one, and that is an interesting one. I'm having a hard time on that one, honestly. So I'm going to get a little bit mildly personal here and say like one of them might be Tyrion, because Tyrion is this character that sees himself as more or less the good guy a lot. And, I think if anybody honestly looks back on their own life, they'll find times in which they weren't definitively the good guy, but they maybe thought they were. And so while I don't have a lot of experiences in my life that actually overlap with Tyrion's, I think that if there's a character that made me go, I wonder if at some time I was the douchebag, or if there's a character that made me go, I wonder if at some time I was the baddies Hans, like, that character might be Tyrion. And I think Tyrion is a very provocative character. A lot of people like to give him, like, kind of a light glossing over and forget the bad stuff. But if you're honest about Tyrion, I think that Tyrion has a lot of, powerful things to say about why self-reflection and honest self-assessment is important. So I'm like, I don't know if I was going to answer that question really, deep, personal. That might be how I would go with it. I'd say, but there probably is others that I'm not thinking of that off the top of my head. So,
it's really funny because everything you just said is exactly the reason I was going to say Daenerys.
Oh, okay.
I don't like the Daenerys chapters in any of the books. I know a lot of people don't like Meereen. And I think it's because on some level she bothers me. She bothers me because she does have an extreme lack of self-awareness. Now, granted, in Game of Thrones, she's 13, so it's a lot more forgivable. But in terms of those moments where, like, you feel like you've been wronged, so you want to blame someone. I never liked Daenerys' decision to burn Mirri Maz Duur. I thought that was really messed up. Mirri Maz Duur was a slave, whose people had been destroyed. And, she didn't owe Dany any allegiance. And she did try to help Drogo. And it was only because Drogo didn't listen to the instructions that his infection got worse. And that incident drives so much of Dany's choices, and I think it bothers me because, of course, I've had moments where, like, I thought I was right. I thought somebody had wronged me. I thought they had done it on purpose to hurt me. And honestly, they were probably just living their life or did what they thought was best or whatever. And, we don't need to base the rest of our lives around it. So, yeah.
Also a very good answer. One that I wouldn't have thought of right away, but yeah, it kind of works for the exact same reason. I need to go back and kind of reread over some of the Dany chapters. I really enjoyed Dany chapters, in earlier rereads of the book. And I've had a lot of perspective shifts on Dany over the years because I originally didn't really get the Dark Daenerys thing. And I've kind of come around to the idea that would be her ending. I originally thought her ending would be to abandon the quest for rulership and to fly off in search of the Red Door. But yeah,
well, that's what she should do.
She should do, exactly.
But I don't think that's what she's going to do.
Exactly she probably won't be what she does. Interesting total side note, but I have a weird kind of pseudo theory in my head that John Connington will actually be who burns King's Landing down because of the Battle of the Bells. But we can hit that up later. So Captain Time, did you want to give did you want to give a answer to this, or you know why Littlefinger has inspired you so much?
Why Littlefinger
As a
is my
POV.
personal role model, as a POV. No, I thought it was funny. Mira Reeds is like explaining why Dany was wrong to kill Miri Maester, and I'm here just like, wow, hottest take of 2004. But
There are still people who think that Miri Maester is a villain. Like,
yes, and there's people who sip Jon Snow, so we don't have to analyze the fandom that much.
What about San?
Oh
I'll see
God,
myself out.
Sansan,
Okay, yeah, that one's-
Sansan is one of those that even scared Martin. I've seen Martin's reaction to that, and he's just like, "Well, people, they talk about the San theory, and you know," and he just gets all awkward. Hey, and we got Arthurian historian here in the chat now. Say hi, Arthurian historian.
Oh, no.
If
Hey, what's up?
yeah, if you guys didn't know, Arthurian Historian was one of the first people to come chat with me on my channel, and he does really good videos analyzing Fire and Blood and Ice and Fire from the perspective of basically more or less like medieval archaeology, kind of. What you explain your whole bag on your channel, because you are a proper student of that stuff.
Yeah, so I'm just coming out of the tail end of a master's in archaeology. So I used to do a lot of videos on just sort of medieval history and medieval archaeology, and then once I got really into the A Song of Ice and Fire fandom, I started sort of using a sort of more historical lens to try and analyze, you know, some fan theories and sort of the universe, and I upload content on that every once in a while.
But yeah, so thanks for coming on the stream to
That's
chat
me.
with us. Do you want to give us an answer to this very first question here? The which POV is the most thematically important and why, and which one affected your life perspective, or would you rather we jump on to the next one? What are you feeling?
I can jump in real quick, but I'm gonna be really basic about it, just because my answer is probably gonna be Jon Snow, just because sort of I started getting into Game of Thrones and The Song of Ice and Fire, you know, sort of in my early 20s. So you know, having, you know, this privileged guy who grew up, you know, in the noble son, and even, you know, as a nobleman's son, and even, you know, like Tyrion calls him out when he first joins the Wall about, you know, how privileged he is, and all of that, and sort of reading that is really what kicked me out of, you know, my sort of grumpy teenager phase of realizing like, ah, shit, I've got it pretty good. I need to stop being, you know, a whiny teenager like John.
That's amazing.
No, that's very good. Yeah, I when I first started getting into the series, I think I was in my later 20s. It must have been, yeah, because I wasn't in my mid 20s or anything. I think I was like 27 or something. And so I was well past my Jon Snow phase, so I was never mega into Jon. And then more recently, I kind of learned to appreciate the Jon chapters, you know, a little more, I guess I could say. But largely because, like I said, I like Jon's overall philosophy. He's got lots of, you know, flaws like every character does, but he likes to choose peace, and like I just think that's a big, you know, big time Martin thing. But I also, you know, I'm a big fan of peace. I don't like war. That's not a good look, right? So we'll move on to another question, since we kind of went over that one.
Before we move on,
okay,
in the Discord, Zach says to tell the chat he says hi. So,
Already
Zach
did
says
that.
hi, everybody. Oh, did we? Whoops.
I already got it, but you're good.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So
Hi,
yeah,
Zach.
we are actually recording. I don't know what the proper word is. Yeah, we're broadcasting. We're broadcasting using the Interesting Nerd Club recording room on their Discord. So if you get a chance and you're not familiar with the Interesting Nerd Club, they're very fun, very cool guys. They do a lot of Ice and Fire theory stuff. But they do other stuff too. You know, so if you get interested, go over there and check out their Discord. You can find the links pretty easily on my channel on in the episode they appear in, or sometime in posts and stuff. But yeah, come check it out, and then you know, explore the Discord and such. Be not like me and learn how Discord works.
That sounds hard.
I know it is difficult. So the Maester conspiracy is the next question. That's why this would be kind of interesting. All right. So if the Maester conspiracy to kill magic is real, those old goats are the real heroes of the story, or what is your take on it? So I guess the old goats is these old maesters. So,
Yeah.
like so I'm always kind of conflicted on that because I don't know that that's like I don't know if you can argue super great that magic is wonderful for the world, but I don't know that you can argue that getting rid of magic is also super wonderful. Like I feel like that's kind of a little bit like, are the Maesters actually trying to get rid of magic? Yeah, I mean, they do seem to prefer that, and they do seem to more or less be trying to write that out of reality, but are they conspiring to do it, I guess, is the interesting question. Do you guys have opinions on that one?
I think that
Yes.
magic is cool and makes for good story writing, so I hope it doesn't go away.
Yeah.
That's my shallow opinion.
So Captain Time says magic good, Maester's evil.
Yes.
So I think this is going to be a stream where RIG gives the best answer, and then Captain Time gives the shit post answer. Oh, sorry, am I allowed to say that?
Yeah, no, go
And
ahead. Go ahead. We're fine. I don't
then-
think they'll cancel the stream or anything for saying shit. I don't think so. So everyone feel.
Well,
let's
there's
say it
one way to
again.
find out.
Yeah, hopefully.
Just start streaming
Yeah,
it.
hopefully we're safe. Hopefully we're safe. YouTube be lenient. Come on, it's just a light stream here. We're all having fun.
Yeah. Well, and then I'll go ahead and give the milk toast lit major theory. I think, and especially from what we've seen with House of the Dragon, I think it's a Hightower conspiracy that involves some of the Maesters. Because of others, as others have cited, Lewin doesn't necessarily seem to be in on it. Crescent definitely wasn't. We get a POV from him. So we have Maesters who do other things. But we also know the Hightowers work with some of the Maesters. I don't think they're trying to get rid of magic. I think they are trying to get magic out of the hands of other people. Because we see what people like Euron can do with a dragon, or they were very anti-Maegor for political reasons. So I think Marwyn has picked up on this pattern and jumped to a very extreme conclusion, but I don't think he's entirely wrong.
Yeah, I would agree that there's certainly like a tangible conspiracy that cooperates with the Hightowers within Maesterdom, but I don't know that it would be all of Maesterdom. I will
mean,
say,
that would be bananas.
yeah, I know. No, it'd be crazy. You would think you would hear something about it. Yeah, from like you think Lewin would be wrapped up in it. And if everyone truly was that tied together, there'd be some more. Crescent would think about the depths of the conspiracy and what part he plays in it and stuff like that. But
There's a thing.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go right ahead.
Just Steve. I don't know how to say it. Steve Dorius in chat was saying, are they trying to kill all magic or just Targaryen magic specifically? I think they're countering all magic because they seem to try to continually deny like the existence of unicorns, like shun the faceless men, and like they have all these weird interactions like
Yeah.
shadow binding is not really related to the Targaryens, but Marwyn was heavily integrated into the shadow binding thing. Glass candles are parts of shadow binding, not really related to the Targaryens at all. So I think the Maesters are anti-magic, not just anti-Targaryen.
Yeah,
Although-
oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mary. You're saying?
Pycelle is the one at the small council who advocates using the faceless men. And Lewin admits that magic once existed. I think Lewin is supposed to be kind of I have two thoughts about Lewin. The one I originally had was he's supposed to be our point of view into kind of your average maester. So the Citadel teaches that magic is gone, and that's why they have do the glass candle thing. And then Crescent acknowledges the magic. That's why he wants to kill Melisandre, not because she's magical, but because he thinks that her zealotry is going to hurt his surrogate son,
Yeah.
Stannis, that it's very personal. But so, we have, varying takes on magic, from the three maesters, like the three maesters besides Marwyn, who we see. And I think that's very telling.
Yeah, I think
but they all acknowledge it as a powerful force that they want to oppose in some capacity.
So if I can jump in really quick, Captain Time, I think that you obviously are familiar with Preston Jacobs. Like everyone here is familiar with Preston Jacobs' understanding, the one he put forth of it being teak, teak. And I like that idea that all magic is more or less, it's not like there's a Targaryen magic or a fire magic or a shadow magic. Like it's all just generally one source of power, and it manifests itself in different ways. But I will say that I do like the idea that within a portion of the Maesters, within there's like a sect of Maesters that would like to fundamentally, rewrite the rules of reality, if you will, and just get magic gone. And I think that would be fun if that's the reason why there's this difference in opinion on magic in Maesterdom, is that if that's kind of a result of parts of Maesterdom literally trying to destroy the conversation, destroy the knowledge of it, and make it as though it's just not real. I will say I do like that thought. I think it's like a really fun idea, but I don't know that you could prove that that's what's happening. It could just be that because magic's not as prevalent, in terms of its appearances currently in Westeros, that it's just fallen out of fashion, and the Maesters think of it as like something that's no longer in existence.
If I can jump in quickly, I think we also have to, sort of like how you're saying there's one magic and treating it like that. While I think that makes a lot of sense, sort of from our perspective, looking into the Song of Ice and Fire world, I think that's definitely not how someone like the Maesters are going to understand it. Because we know the Maesters are, or at least, a part of the Old Town sort of culture that's also heavily tied with the Faith of the Seven. And the Faith of the Seven does supernatural things all the time. Like you have who's the Lannister that like sleeps under altars and gets visions? What was his name?
Oh, Lancel.
Lancel?
Yeah,
Lancel. Lancel
yeah.
Lannister, yeah.
Yeah, and like they're pretty cool with that. And even if it, from our perspective, sort of looking at the fandom, we understand, oh, it's all different. I think that, like the Maesters and even other people, using teak are going to understand it as being sort of religiously like segregated, I guess. Because like using teak, like we have, like the all powerful turtle, who's better when he's, in his little turtle shell. Uh, so like even if it is just teak and it's sort of universal and not religiously divided, I think if we took somebody like Bloodraven, like Bloodraven, and tried to make him do magic in a sept instead of, in the Weirwoods, like he would be definitely weaker, if not impossible, because even if the magic is the same source, like the way the characters understand it is going to be totally different from their more religious perspectives. Uh, Sort of like how if we take, like our real world, if I don't know, like a Wiccan or somebody does something and then their prayers come true, somebody might be, that's magic, but then a Catholic priest does it, and that's a miracle, that's religion, that's good. I think that's how the characters in the universe are going to understand it.
That's a good point. Yeah, people's perspectives are going to affect how they view magic and what they think is actually like, making the magic. That's probably what they talk about as being different things. Sorry, Captain Time.
I just gotta say, I like really disagree. Like this story is called A Song of Ice and Fire. There are two distinct magical forces, kind of the ice magic force, the fire magic force, and then like there's water magic under ice magic and like shadow binding under fire magic. But there's two sources of magic, and they're constantly in like this asymmetrical battle, which is why like the seasons have no pattern to them. That's why the story is called A Song of Ice and Fire. That's why we've got the main POV that's on the ice front and the main POV that's on the fire front, and that's why there's no real overlap between the two and all that stuff, because I think the story is fundamentally about that conflict. Like it's not about war, but it's about a battle greater than humanity.
So Captain Time is very magic pilled. No, I think that's interesting because while I think that the way you present it makes a lot of sense and is incredibly fantasy. I find it just be super antithetical to Martin and his previous writings. So if that's true, it's going to be super interesting because because
Yeah.
it's Martin trying something that he really is like that's the most fascinating thing to me about the actual takes, that it really is magic in a way that Martin hasn't written before, is that it would be like what a interesting pull that would be for him as an author. I think that would actually be super cool. Even if I disagree, even if I think it's different, I'm like, that's a very interesting way of thinking about it, you know? And also
So-
we have Amanda here in the chat. We got even more
wow.
people.
Hello, everyone.
And I think I always
Um,
mispronounce your channel, Nafada Astra. How do you pronounce it?
Yeah, pronounce it whatever, like however you want. I just chose a very complicated name, and I regret it, but whatever. It's extra, and I love it.
Well, it's super cool. So if you guys don't know, Amanda has a channel where she talks about on tonematology. On how do you pronounce the word? I'm so bad with pronunciation. I'm very bad at it.
It's alright. I'm obsessed with names, and the study of names is onomatology.
Yeah, there you go.
So
Onomatology.
nomo is from name. So yeah, onomatology.
But she does super cool videos. So go over there if you haven't already checked out her channel. Go over there and check it out. There's links in my Discord, and then I think I did a post, but maybe not. But I'm sure you can find it. You can give your channel name spelling, because it's pretty easy to spell.
Okay, so NEFANDA ASTRA, Nefanda Astra.
There you go. So yeah, if you guys haven't seen it, look it up. Very cool. So do you wanna answer one of these questions for us, Mandy? Do you wanna do you wanna give us
let
your
me-
thoughts on the Maester conspiracy? If basically the question was, if the Maester conspiracy is real, are the Maesters the good guys? And would you more or less agree that there is a Maester conspiracy? You know, and does it make them good?
Well, I would say that is definitely a Maester conspiracy because, well, I think it's very hard to believe that once you give like basically the monopoly over science and knowledge in general in the hands of a little just a small amount of people, and there's a council of them that kind of decides what is going to be thoughts to other people. Like, and especially when it comes like to the people that are teaching the minds of like the future governors and everything of the world. Like, it's very hard for me to believe that these people are not going to take advantage of it for whatever reason or purpose. So yeah, I think there's definitely a Maester conspiracy. I wouldn't say like I wouldn't say with certainty that they definitely did. Like, for example, a lot of people believe that they're on making the Targaryens less. What's the English name for that? Like, they're like making the Targaryen women less fertile or something like that. I have a big suspicion on that. They didn't just want to kill the dragons. They wanted to, destroy the Targaryen dynasty because they were against a lot of the things that the Maesters, vouch for. But I wouldn't say that makes them good or bad. I think that's the whole thing with the Gurm's world. It's that people are not necessarily bad or good. They have their reasons to do what they do. And Maesters think that the Targaryens are problematic for them, and in some topics they are not wrong. There is a lot of things that the Targaryens did that were not very cool, and dragons were a liability. Like, not only because they are like weapons of mass destruction, but also because they were weapons of mass destruction with a personality, and that feel hungry, and even their own masters couldn't fully control them. So I would say that they have like their reasons, but they also could do like probably did that in went to do what they wanted to do in maybe cruel or unethical ways, especially if they are involved with, you know, with the situation with the fertility of Targaryen women, or doing something with their babies or stuff like that, you know, or the death or of the family members. So I wouldn't say they're the good guys. It's I don't like the idea of saying that a group of people in its whole, you know, the whole group of people is bad or is good. Maybe we could have like good people that actually cared for the realm or whatever. Maybe we just had people that didn't want the Targaryens around. Maybe there were people that just wanted to do what the High Towers told them to do. I don't know. They had their reasons, but I wouldn't say they're all good or all bad. They probably had their agenda, and there's probably a conspiracy. I would do a conspiracy if I were like in there, you know, with the monopoly of knowledge and able to do that, and I had a problem with the specifically like ruling family. So I don't know. That's my take. Probably not the best take.
No, I would kind of agree. I mean, like I would say that the Maesters definitely conspire, and there's probably sects within the Maesters, and they probably have agendas, and that doesn't necessarily make them the heroes or the villains. It just makes them people with agendas,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, because like if you see like in the history of like Christianity and like the Vatican, you can see there were many conspiracies inside the Vatican that maybe didn't include all of the cardinals or even the Pope, and sometimes like because there were popes that the cardinals conspired against and things like that. But because they had like this very strong power back in the day over like religion, that was like a major thing, and you know, so they did conspiracies. They influenced the powers of the time, especially in Italy, and things like that. So if you're doing that not only for religion, which was the case for Vatican and the Pope and the cardinals, and you're doing this for people who are like the scientists, the teachers, the historians, they're everything. They can rewrite whatever they want, and they can tell like the future governors and leaders of the whole country, like the whole continent, in fact, to do what they say, because those people don't have the same knowledge that they do. So if they're telling you like, drink this potion, do this, invade whatever place, because they're also like the military strategists. I mean, I think it's very hard like for them not to do a conspiracy when they have like such power over people, and like Legend and Ultimate Chad, Barbary Dustin says, like the Grey Rats, they came from families. Like they also, you know, the Maester that was born a Lannister, he's not gonna stop being a Lannister because, you know, he studied for, you know, some years and, you know, is living somewhere else. Like he probably, you know, he's probably doing stuff for his family still. He's still like, he has ravens that nobody touches. He's gonna write some secret letters. So
Yeah, I think George put the things like Barbary Dustin and Marwyn going into detail and chatting about those things more or less to the reader in the book. So because he's more or less chatting to the reader about it and trying to get you to be like, hey, don't trust the Maesters. They might be evil, you know. Could be a thing. You should maybe listen to these characters that are more or less talking directly at you. But
yeah,
but and it could be a misdirect. You know, it could be misdirect. I will say, but I think that's kind of, I think he is trying to imply that there really is something going on, that Marwyn's not making it all up. You know what I mean?
I just had a brain smart.
Huh? What were you gonna say?
The Gray Men. Melisandre asked Davos, and she says about, you know, a rotten onion is only half with rot. It's still a rotten onion. And she says he's a gray man. The Maesters are the gray men. I think that's exactly what they are, because we know Melisandre is wrong about everything. I think the Maesters are, some of them are good and some of them are bad. And the bad ones can be very bad, and that they, you know, it's a cautionary tale about letting any one group wield too much power.
Exactly.
But that doesn't mean the institution. Yeah, it was just specifically the phrase "gray men." I was like, oh.
Yeah, I think that's also like part of not only like the Maesters can be good or bad, but also that can be like a symbolism for the facade, like being a gray man with like that, like they're all the same. They're just old men dressed in gray with a bunch of chains. Like they look like inoffensive and without a personality or an allegiance. So that's also like a costume, like a facade. Like, oh, I'm just an old man dressed in gray. No, you have your goals. You don't fool me, old man.
If I could do one last tangent, just because these are all ideas like coming to me in the moment. That Gurm also likes to invert the symbolism that we're expecting. I mean, we all know about what he likes to do with our expectations, but you know, the white cloaks, white is said to be, you know, purity, fire cleanses or whatever, but like most of the Kingsguard that we see are not pure. I mean, Boris Blunt and the Hound. I mean, I like the Hound, but I wouldn't call him pure. What's his name? Kettle Black. You know, so it's almost like the white cloak is hiding what is impure, you know, whereas on the Night's Watch, I mean, granted, you have some not great Night's Watchmen, you know, but they're seen as like, you know, the wildlings call them crows, you know, people in the southern Six Kingdoms, you know, hold them with disdain, but like a lot of them are really good men, like Lord Mormont. So this would actually be a really cool theme to explore, like a whole video about black and white, specific, like the use of color.
Yeah, I certainly.
Anyway,
I certainly think the white cloaks are a big fake out, because yeah, even the Kingsguard that more or less are not out there doing overtly evil things or oftentimes tolerating evil things. Captain Time and
this could be a whole paper.
And Arthurian, did you guys have an opinion on the Maesters that you wanted to share, or should we jump on to the next question?
Yeah, my opinion is that if we go this slowly, this stream is going to take so long. I'm going to be your age by the time we're done with it.
That's the point. That's the point. We're just gonna randomly talk our way through a bunch of these questions, and then we'll just stream in until we get bored of streaming. You know, that'll happen eventually. But you know, we got tons of questions, and so I feel like we can just talk about these questions forever.
Can I say something to Mira?
Sure.
Like,
well, it's RAG stream.
Mira, Mira. Just a thing. If you want to discuss colors, you want to do a video with me about A Song of Ice and Fire heraldry, like the symbolism of the houses and the colors?
You have no idea how much I would love that.
Okay, we're gonna do that.
Yeah, and I'm also going to be writing a paper and submitting it to an academic journal about specifically the colors black and white. I mean, that's only kind of a joke. You could absolutely do that. Write an academic paper about that.
Well, you should definitely make a video about the black and white colors if you end up writing something. That would be a fun video.
Yeah, I mean, I probably won't write the paper, but I could make a video.
Yeah, black for sure. Like I like, but
the whole thing with like shadows, like how I when I researched this is just fascinating. How shadow binding and like shadows don't serve like the Lord of Darkness of the religion of R'hllor, like black and like shadows aren't darkness. Like I still can't get over that. Like I think it's so cool that.
Well, and that's a direct. A direct shout out or maybe criticism of Tolkien, because you know Tolkien was writing after World War I. Okay, this is going to turn into a Lord of the Rings stream. We can talk about this another time. I'm so sorry.
No, go ahead. If you got something interesting about Tolkien and World War I, you keep it on the stream.
Okay.
Only the most interesting and premium of really weird nerd content here.
I love it. Okay, so come with me on this journey. Tolkien is writing Lord of the Rings after World War One, and if you think about that, you know, they're in the trenches. You know, people are breaking their bones because they're not getting enough sunlight. They're not getting enough vitamin D. It's dark. They're using chemical warfare. I mean, World War One was just a horror show from start to finish. So he's coming out of that. And a lot of people criticize him for using dark as bad and light is good. And if you're talking about that in terms of human beings, that is a terrible thing, and those people are correct. But if you're looking at it from the point of view of somebody who just survived World War One, and I could be wrong about that. He writes a lot about war, and I think it was World War One. So somebody fact check me on that if I'm wrong, please.
It was World War One.
Okay. And then we have coming next into the conversation is George R.R. Martin, who is thinking about Vietnam, who is thinking about a war where we shouldn't be, guerrilla warfare, napalm, also horrific, but nowhere near as justified, right? And so he's pulling apart this concept of black and white and saying, like, none of this is justified. And this black and white dichotomy doesn't accurately describe what's really going on with war. And so I think it's part of the larger conversation.
I would say that's definitely an accurate assessment, that George R. Martin looks at black and white dichotomies, and he says that that's not, you know, a great way of describing things like warfare or like humanity in general. It's like you can't just categorically make everything over here black and evil and everything over here white and good. You know, it doesn't work that way in reality.
Well, and he also goes out of his way. I mean, if you like, the Cranach men and the Dornish are reviled by other Westerosi, you know, but like most of the fan base sees them as like the really cool hero types who defended their homelands. I mean, again, like Vietnamese. Where's that other thought going? Oh, and then again, we see the people who aren't knights behaving in the most knightly way. Brienne for sure, Dunk definitely, and I would honestly argue Sandor Clegane is far more knightly than a lot of the knights. He's the only one who didn't hit Sansa. Give him points for that. So it's like I said, if I sat down, I could probably turn this into a whole paper and discussing the differences between the use of black and white in Lord of the Rings versus
and
Song of Ice and Fire.
If there's something that is white and give me the heebie-jeebies is the weirwoods.
Right?
Yeah.
I think David Lightbringer has a video explaining how the weirwoods are the others, and I thought that was a really cool idea.
Yeah, and I wonder if there's like a symbolism with the black and white thing, and the weirwoods versus the trees for the. Oh damn! What's the name of the thing that Euron drinks that there is in the House of the Undying? Like
Shade of the Evening.
Yes,
shade of the evening.
Yeah, the trees are the opposite colors. Like they're black and blue, and like
in the world book there is a place, I do believe, where there are like black trees with blue leaves or something like that, and they produce some kind of weird drink that makes you trip out. But I'm forgetting the specificities, but I think there is something like that in the world book where it's like an inverted weirwood tree.
Yeah. I wonder if there's like implications over black and white and the weirwoods versus these trees. But yeah, maybe we should read another question.
Okay, let's jump through a few questions here. Okay, so do you feel that Jon will be resurrected as he was before, or more bestial, as he probably warged into Ghost? Sorry, my eyes aren't that great, and I'm like reading this on the screen.
I have heard so many good Jon resurrection theories. I'm ready for this question.
My theory is he won't be affected by being in Ghost, but having seen the other side of death, he will become much more stark, colder, and harder. So I'm like, I tend to agree with this to a degree, I guess I could say. Like, I think Jon, will warg into Ghost, and then he'll be in Ghost, but he'll come back, and I don't think he'll be like as epically far gone as people are thinking, but I could be wrong. I like the idea that people have put forth that we'll never see another Jon POV, but that Jon will continue to be a character, and that he'll just watch him do action, and that is kind of appealing. But But I'm like questioning whether George R. R. Martin will do that, so I just don't know. But yeah, I don't think he's going to come back acting crazy different, but I think he's going to come back different. Like he can't not come back different. But I like I said, I think maybe if he lasted longer in Ghost, he'd come back different. But okay, I'll kick that over to you guys really quick. So what do you guys think about this question? Will he come back different? Will he be bestial?
I've heard so many good Jon Snow resurrection theories. One of my favorites is really bone chilling, and it's that we'll see Jon get resurrected in some Melisandre POV early in the Winds of Winter. And like you said, we won't see Jon directly, but we'll see other POVs throughout the entire book, and it'll just be Jon doing normal things. And then the very last chapter of the Winds of Winter will be a Ghost epilogue in which we realize that Jon is still trapped in Ghost and we have no idea who's controlling his body. That would be absolutely terrifying and so cool. Probably won't happen. Another nice theory that I've heard is that he'll be resurrected with like gray hair, which makes a lot of sense. If he is resurrected, I think that will happen. Another thing is that, I mean, if he's dead, I really don't see him coming back either as Jon or even really at all. I personally don't think he's dead, though. I think he's just, like, comatose. It's, like, with what Martin said and how the chapter ends and the fact that there's no real confirmation, I think he's just bleeding out and about to die, but will probably get saved through some intervention.
Okay.
Because if he's getting resurrected, he's going to be so messed up and so different at this point that if R+L = J and Jon is the hero that all the fangirls want, like it's not going to work if he's resurrected.
R+L = J does not mean he's the hero.
I know.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I hate mainstream fans that think it, and I don't believe R+L = J. So I'm getting personal here. But
really quick, El Dante, I think it's something. My eyes are so bad I can barely read my computer screen. El Dante 777 says, "Is Jon gonna come back to be like Cold Hands, some other non-white?" I don't know. I don't think he'll have the same problem as Cold Hands, but man, wouldn't that be fucked up if Jon Snow was like really rigor mortis and just like. Wouldn't that be lame? Oh, that would suck for Jon. Oh, I would feel bad.
Yeah.
Sorry, you were saying?
Is everyone on the stream familiar? Yes, everyone on the stream familiar with the theory that Melisandre is a non-other white?
Yes.
Yeah, vaguely.
That's something I think could be interesting because, like, you know, Melisandre might be you know, some form of living dead, and she's obviously very religiously extreme. And then you have, you know, the Brotherhood Without Banners, who has that element where they, you know, they see the ghost of what is that? Not the ghost of Old Stone, but they see the prophetess,
the ghost of High Heart.
Old Stones. Yeah, the ghost of High Heart, and you know they have the weirwood throne and everything. So there's sort of religious elements to that as well. And then, of course, you know, Thoros of Myr, who sort of starts our resurrection chain, was a priest of R'hllor as well. And then Jon is very sort of old god focused. You know, like he's one of the few people that says his vows by the heart tree. Like every time we have it, it's very rare. And I think a few other theorists have sort of pointed out that he sort of has bits of being you know. Not extreme, but you know, following the old gods, and you know, everyone else except for maybe Stoneheart, you know, seems to have a lot of sort of religious extremism a bit more when they come back. So I think there's that, if you know, and that kind of makes sense. I imagine dying and coming back from the dead would be quite the religious experience. So I think it might lead to some sort of again, sort of allying up with Bran and Bloodraven, and sort of being the equivalent of Melisandre for the old gods.
Yeah, like my belief on the whole Jon thing is that like making a connection with the Duncan Egg novellas and the like Maester Aemon And Blood Raven, like the quote from Maester Aemon, like let the boy die so the man can live, or something like that, or something of the sort. I don't remember the exact quote in English, but I think this is very symbolic of what Bloodraven wants with Jon's death, because I think like Jon is gonna come back like colder and with a less memory of things in a Beric Dondarrion fashion. So like his trauma, his insecurities, his like more fragile human side is not going to bother him when he has to start doing things that he wouldn't do before he was dead. And maybe even if you want to believe that Jon is going to stab Dany, maybe that's into like the equation left of him like having to do something of the sort and feeling probably not a lot about the situation. And if he is the prophesized hero, if he is like what Bloodraven wants, like who Bloodraven wants to do, like the things, Bloodraven is not gonna want someone that's gonna back down and feel feelings. And if he's doing what he's doing with Bran, who is an 8-year-old, I imagine like he's gonna have even less tolerance for like touchy feelings with Jon, if Jon is to be like the hero he needs to save the realm. So he's probably gonna like he probably like made so Jon died so he could suppress his human side and it wouldn't interfere with the plans. So that's like the boy dying and the man coming to life, even though the man is probably not as human as we would like. But yeah, I think we're not gonna see Jon's POV, and people are gonna probably have like a weird time noticing that Jon became like colder, not only like literally, but also in his behavior and his assessment and his worries with people.
So I actually have the opposite take, with a similar conclusion, but for like an entirely different train of thought. That the other characters we see come back from the dead are almost single-mindedly pursuing the thing they were doing right before they died. With Beric Dondarrion, the Brotherhood under him, they are still serving King Robert and protecting the Riverlands, which is absurd because King Robert is dead.
No,
But
they're not
that was
serving
what
King
Dondarrion-
Robert. They're just saying that to be trolls. But yeah,
To be
Well, I don't
trolls?
think-
The Brotherhood without
Okay.
banners are trolling. That's the new Captain Time video. Sorry,
Wait, hear me out.
Mira, continue.
But the mission that they were assigned was protecting the Riverlands, and that's what they're still doing. I'm not saying everyone in the Brotherhood believes that they're serving King Robert, but that is the mission statement that they give. And Thoris kind of explains it, how they did those mental gymnastics. But I think Dondarrion specifically, the reason he's doing that is because that's what he was doing right before he died. The other example we have is Daenerys. Now, whether you believe she's literally a fire white or just thematically came back from the dead after she was burned on the pyre, the two things on Dany's mind at that point are dead children and slaves. And what do we see throughout the rest of the story? That Dany is almost single-mindedly doing, freeing slaves and trying to protect children, save children from dying. And so I think, based on what Jon Snow was doing right before he died, I think he's going to go take Winterfell. Because that's what he was doing, and that's it. It's sort of like,
okay,
if you
if you want to get really like the moment he was dying, he thought he needed a horn to control the situation. So you can get into some really cool theories there because there's a lot of fun horn-based theories. And if Jon's dying thought is needing to get a horn, and he's resurrected, and he's somehow focused on Dragonbinder or the Horn of Winter.
we have a
anything,
lot of
like,
horns.
A lot of horns.
I'm obsessed with the horn on Crackclaw or on Claw Isle.
The one that I forget what the family is called.
The Celtigars
the
have.
Celtigars had the Celtigar horn. Yeah,
the one that summons Krakens. The horn of whatever the guy's name was. I did a video on it. Shoot, that one was really cool.
I need to watch that.
Yeah, the horns are
Yeah.
pretty cool. I also like the idea of the Jon thinking about the whole horn thing as a dying thought. That's a fun idea. So, new question.
Yeah, or maybe.
New
Oh,
question.
okay.
Sorry. We could take some time on this one probably too, because this one says, do you think that George R.R. Martin would change future plans for the plot of the books based on things that happened in House of the Dragon, like the prophecy Aegon the Conqueror had, for example? And my answer to this question is gonna
Gosh, I hope not.
definitively no.
Okay.
I think that Martin has a philosophy kind of that like TV is just different and that TV just has its own thing. Like he expects the TV portrayal of stuff to just be like almost a different story. And I think that he's letting the writers kind of more or less run free with their own ideas in a lot of regards. But I mean, I could try to go out there and compile all the evidence to make an argument about this, but that's just my gut feeling, I guess you could say, based on like whatever things I've watched with George R. R. Martin in them and just watching the show, and reading the books. I don't think that that he's going to change what his thoughts are based on House of the Dragon. I think that he's going to change what his thoughts are based on his own thoughts. That he's just going to continually switch things around and jumble things up and just be a Martin. He's just gonna Martin it up. That's what he does. Like that's why I want to go to the Cushing Library, because like the interesting things from the Cushing Library, like it's just like him, like it seems like he's just like rewriting the same chapters like over and over again, like in different ways. He's just shuffling the cards with the story. So like I imagine that's what he'll just continue to do. But who knows? So do you guys have any thoughts on that? What do you think? How do you think Martin will change the plot of the books, if he will, and if he does, will it have anything to do with House of the Dragon?
I think it depends on how we're defining change. Because like Martin, he has that one quote about how if you start writing your story where the butler did the murder, and then you change it to the chambermaid did it, then it messes up all the foreshadowing and everything. So I don't think he's gonna like change stuff in that, like I think in some form of a basic outline that's gonna stay the same. But also knowing George, knowing Martin, might he add new stuff in that doesn't change anything but makes the story way too long and way too complicated? I could see that as a possibility. That sounds like a very Martin move.
I think he has said in interviews that like show canon and book canon parted ways, and I think he cites season 5 as like the moment where he really realized that the show was diverting. I don't have the source for that on hand, but I believe he did say that in an interview. Although he has also used the show to correct plot holes. There's one in particular that irks me a little bit. In the books, presumably Sansa is still in possession of the poisoned hairnet. In the show, it was a necklace, and Littlefinger smashes it and throws it into the sea. And I think that was George, like, saying, I meant to get rid of this and forgot, so we're putting it in the show, that it's gone now. But so I think in his mind, he has said, basically, that they are separate. He doesn't have to stick to it. But I think anything that he incorporates personally into the show, we can be reasonably confident is at least like somewhat relevant to the books, even if specific details are different.
What about you, Amanda, or Captain Time? Do you guys have either of you guys have an opinion on
No.
this question?
Look,
Weren't we talking about the hairnet recently, or was that on something else?
Yeah.
or-
I'm obsessed with
Okay.
the hairnet.
We may have been. We may have
Really?
been.
I don't have any deep thoughts here.
Yeah, I don't have any deep thoughts. I just have like, I just hope there's less incest, because we were going to get like Jon and Arya, and that wasn't cool. But if you're telling me, like, if the question is saying like House of the Dragon is going to influence him writing The Winds of Winter and Dream of Spring, then it's going to have more incest. So because I don't know if you know, guys, but people started to search for step uncle in certain sites after House of the Dragon. so probably Gurm is going to create an...
now the live stream is definitely banned.
Sorry.
Yeah. Hit the
So
subject change
I hope
button.
there's less. I hope people are going to start marrying people from, I don't know, start
So
marrying people from Essos to be sure.
you're talking about the original book draft when you're talking about Jon and Arya, right? Like he didn't say anything about that being anywhere near.
No, but if
near
you
the
know
current
that
plans.
and you read the first 200 pages of A Game of Thrones, you can see it and it's scarring, and you just have to pretend like.
Yeah, I didn't know if he was still talking about that being a possibility, or if he had just definitively abandoned it, which I thought he had just definitively abandoned it, but.
I think it was abandoned, but maybe Jon and Sansa can still be a thing, and there's a lot of people who support Jon and Sansa being the thing.
That's
very
not stream safe material.
If you believe that Jon is a Dane, then it's fine, and not Ned's. If he's Brandon and a
it's still not okay.
It's still weird. If it's your
if he's Brandon's, it's medievally acceptable, but not stream acceptable. And if he was if he was not, then it's very bad. Then it's worse. If he actually is Ned's, if he actually is Ned's, then it's bad.
If he actually is Ned's, then everywhere it's bad.
Yeah, yes. then it's very not stream acceptable. No, we don't endorse.
I don't like the idea even of like step siblings and we were just raised together and we're all adopted. It already doesn't make me feel very comfortable. So
it is gross.
So
we have literal twins in the book starts with Cersei and Jaime. So if that makes you uncomfortable, this is not the series for you.
Yeah, but at least Cersei and Jaime are kind of breaking up, and also they are already there. I'm saying don't include more Gurm.
Okay.
Please stop putting so much incest, Gurm. You can put other things. You can put other kinky stuff. Just stay away from the incest, please. Put another thing. I don't know.
So new question. This one might be a little easier to answer, and hopefully will be a little bit stream safer. Which is your favorite book /POV /chapter line from the series? So any of those four: book, POV, chapter, or line. And so for me, favorite line: "Are you the Harpy?" When Sir Barristan confronts Hisdar, and he's just like, "Are you the Harpy?" That's the best line in the book. I wish I was that line. So favorite chapter, probably the chapter where Sansa almost gets thrown out the moon door and then Lysa gets killed by Littlefinger. I did a reading of that if you're interested, and I think it's my best reading so far. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's the one I enjoyed the most. So, and then POV, my favorite point of view person in the whole series. That's a tough one. Damn. Son of a bitch, that's a hard one. Okay, maybe let's just skip that. We'll skip that, and I'll think about that. I'll go to book. My favorite book. I really do just like the classic, the OG Game of Thrones, but I also am pretty partial to the ending 2 books. Although I do love the other books also, so that's a hard call as well. I'm not saying I'm a hater for any of the books, but a lot of people don't like Feast for Crows. I really enjoy Feast for Crows. Third book is great. Gosh, that's a difficult one too. All right, I'm passing it off. Everybody else, jump in while I think about these ones.
My favorite quote of the best written quote is Ned likes my hair, but that one's just a tearjerker. So my favorite cool quote is "Dance with me then," and my favorite POV is Littlefinger, as we've already established.
What about book? Favorite book?
A Storm of Swords. I'm vanilla. I do really like a Clash of Kings, though.
No, I know. Storm of Swords is a totally awesome choice.
Well, my favorite POVs are Victorians because I think they're very fun. My favorite book is A Feast for Crows. my favorite chapter is that one, that disgusting one with Cersei and Taena Merryweather, and it's always gonna be my favorite chapter. And I'm gonna die on this hill, and I'm gonna fight anyone who tries to dissuade me from my opinion, because I think it's probably the most powerful, angry, traumatic, disgusting thing in those books. Like
As
you can
long as you
really
acknowledge how disgusting it was.
yeah, that's why I love it, because like I am not like a Cersei stan, and I am afraid of people who are, but you know, like you can really feel all this woman is in that, like in that chapter. You can really feel like her trauma, everything he's like fighting against, like her insecurities, everything she felt like she went through with her family, everything she went through with Robert, and she is becoming her trauma in that chapter. Like she is embodying everything that the world did to her. She's looking like in a dark mirror and saying like, I will be that monster. And that to me, it's so powerful, and the way it's written is like so unapologetically like disgusting and evil that you can almost feel bad for her. And it's and all, you feel hate, you feel like disgusted, but you also can feel like, yeah, this is a very traumatized person that, you know, went through a lot that I probably cannot say on stream. So I really love that chapter because I feel it's very powerful, like about like if George R. R. Martin wants to write about like the human heart and conflict, that is the human heart and conflict with drugs and in the worst situation possible and becoming like your, you know, the worst version of yourself. So I think that it's one of the best chapters because of that, because I really feel like the power, the evilness.
Really quick, the chat, it seems like they're asking what all the different equations are, and I the equation that I think is one of the more fun ones is the one that everyone dislikes, which is that Rhaegar and Lyanna equals Daenerys. So what is your guys' equation that you like? And tell everybody why you enjoy it.
Well, everybody knows me and Captain Time, right?
And you guys,
that was a joke.
Your guys is which?
Well, because Captain Time is the ship host and I'm the milk toast dancer.
Oh, I don't know which one's
already
which.
established that.
I'm not that familiar with Ice and Fire culture, to be honest. I'm an old man, and
you are 4 years older than me.
No, he's just glamoured like Melisandre.
So
he's older than that.
But what? Yeah. If you had to give an equation, really quick, what's your equation? Just the equation. Your favorite equation for either Jon or Daenerys. Either one.
NHA.
Okay.
NHA is really cool because it's the fusion of like the Danes and the Starks, which are definitely the two coolest houses in A Song of Ice and Fire, because the Targaryens suck and are evil, and if you want all the fire magic cool stuff, you can just make Jon half Dane and still have the same thematic effect.
But, I mean, like,
it even makes more sense.
For similar reasons, I like Brandon plus Ashara equals Jon, but what about Arthurian Historian? Do you have a favorite equation?
Ooh, I really like the either Ned or Benjen with or Ned and Brandon, I think, with Ashar. I really like that. I think it's like the most interesting one. But I think realistically it's Rhaegar and Lyanna's Jon. I think it's not the most fun answer, but I think that's probably the true answer.
That's the most realistic answer in your mind, yeah.
Yeah.
Mira Reeds, do you have a favorite equation then? So what's your milk toast equation?
Yeah, I mean, I'm also in the R+L = J camp because thematically for Ned, it makes the most sense. It makes his false confession at the end of Game of Thrones, the tie on the bow at the end of his arc, because if Jon is not Lyanna's, if he hasn't done everything he can to protect his Targaryen nephew by lying, then thematically it kneecaps all of that, right? Because he does the same thing. He lies to protect his daughters. So if he would have no reason to protect Jon's identity if Jon from Robert, if Jon was not a Targaryen. Although, so all that aside, if we're speaking logistically,
So wait, really
Brandon
quick,
and Ashara.
just interesting question. So do you think when Ned Stark was thinking in his own head about, you know, how he was kind of, you know, doing something shady when he was scribbling in like when the heir comes of age or whatever, when he forged Robert's will essentially, he was thinking, did you think he was thinking of Jon at that point?
No,
Okay.
he was thinking of Stannis, and he
Yeah.
says that
Okay.
because
Right,
he
this is-
justifies all of his lies in his head. Robert says, "Promise to protect my children," and Ned thinks of Gendry and Bara and says, "I will protect your children." He's thinking of the bastards. Then Robert tells him what to write in the will. Ned changes it to say heir, and he says he means Stannis, so he's not really lying. He does everything he can to not lie. Like even when he talks to Catelyn about Jon, he says, "Jon is my blood." He doesn't say son.
Yeah.
You know, he's very careful about that. And so like it throughout, like I guess what I'm saying is he's characterized in this way very consistently. And the only thing people really cite as to like why it doesn't make sense or why he would be protecting Daenerys if it wasn't that Daenerys was his niece. I would say again, it's thematic that we're seeing that parallel between Ned protecting Sansa, so he lies. You know, Ned protects Daenerys because she is a Targaryen child, and also if Robert decides to take a deep breath and go to therapy and grow up and just drop the whole Daenerys thing, then the world is going to be a safer place for Jon. And the thing is, if Ned were to come out and say it in his POV, that would give away the mystery. So I think him dreaming or thinking about Daenerys when he comes out of the dream is meant to be a clue. It's like he has the dream about Jon and says, okay, this is something I can take action on. If I can get Robert to lighten up on Daenerys, that is protecting Jon.
Yeah, because I always read it the opposite direction, that he was so Daenerys focused that was the fake out, that of course you're supposed to think Jon's the kid at the tower, because that would be the sensical option, you know, in terms of the evidence, and then the fake out would be that it wasn't Jon, it was Daenerys.
We've been theorizing about this for 25 years, so people are looking for an extra fake out. I promise you, I got all the way through all 5 books and never put together R+L = J. It wasn't until I got on the internet after reading the books that I was like, oh, okay.
So
that does make sense.
Todd Howard asked a question that says least favorite plot line in A Song of Ice and Fire. They say for them it's the Bravo stuff. They don't really like Arya all that much. I happen to really enjoy certain parts of the Arya, especially when she goes down and you finally see the faces. That part is just like fantastic.
Oh,
it's wonderful. Yeah. It's an absolutely wonderful part. So I would say, but there are parts of the Bravos thing that I think can be a little bit boring, you know, depending on your taste. So maybe it just takes too long to get to the juicy stuff. But so my least favorite plot line in The Song of Ice and Fire. I'll think on that for just a second or two. Do you guys have a least favorite plot line in A Song of Ice and Fire? Something that you could just do without? I mean, like,
yes, I do. Theon, A Clash of Kings, skipped it first read through, like all of his POVs.
All of Theon? So you just didn't enjoy any Theons?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I can skim read well, but I would like spend no more than like 30 seconds looking at each Theon chapter.
You're just like, fuck Theon, don't give a shit about him.
I just really didn't like him because he was insufferable. He was arrogant. He was a lot of sexual content in the chapters. Just a lot of stuff I didn't like. So nah.
Yeah, Theon is a certified douchebag. That's for sure. But I thought there was interesting stuff going on in his chapters, but I as a character I was like, oh god, I do hate this guy. So yeah. Amanda, did you have a least favorite plot line in A Song of Ice and Fire?
Damn, like thinking now, I wouldn't say a plot line, but in the beginning, like Jon just arrived as a Night's Watch member. Like he was so mopey and emo and like complaining. Like I was like starting to get frustrated with him, and like I liked when people said like basically you're a little privileged asshole, please stop. Because I think he needed that, but there were moments that it was frustrating because it was just like an annoying mopey teenager. So I was like, yeah, please stop, John. Yeah, like can we stop being emo? I know you don't have an MP3 to listen to Linkin Park, and but can you stop? And also like I think there are some chapters in Mirin that are kind of boring to me personally. Like there are some parts in Mirin that I kind of start like to lose attention span on them. But I wouldn't say there's like a least favorite plot line. I like most of them. I just think there are some chapters that are a little like they need to explain things, and you need the time to contextualize. And sometimes in a book there's so many things happening, when you're taking time to contextualize, other things just look boring. Like it's very boring when you have to contextualize like a different setting when there's like people stabbing each other in the other chapters. So I wouldn't say I have a least favorite plotline.
Does anyone else have a least favorite plot line?
So I kind of agree with Todd. I'm not a huge fan of Bravos, just because it feels more disconnected from all the other storylines. But this is where we know that George is a master of 4D chess, because by not finishing the series, I have to read it anyways because it might tie back in with the rest of the story.
No, yeah, so there certainly are boring parts of the Bravos chapters. I'm not gonna lie, but I did get a lot out of them, even the weird parts, like the calling out for oysters and clams and cockles and all those weird. Like I don't know, it was interesting. Like so, I wouldn't necessarily say it was like one that I didn't like, but yeah, it would have been lower on my list at certain points. I'm trying to think of any plots that I just downright just didn't like, where I was just like, I just didn't like that. I'm having a hard time. I'm sure there's one or two out there. All right, did you guys want to go back to some of these questions? We talked about favorite books and POVs and all that sort of stuff, right?
Oh, I wanted to throw in my
yeah, go right ahead.
favorite quote in POV, and then I've actually got to run.
Okay, go right ahead.
So my favorite POV is Davos, because I just love him. I want him to be my dad. Well, no, I don't. Too. Not if I have to serve on a ship, because then I'll get blown up. Dadvos, exactly.
Dadvos.
And actually, so then my favorite quote and favorite chapter are all Dadvos related. My favorite quote. The North remembers, Lord Davos. The North remembers, and the Mummer's farce is almost done. My son is home. I mean, like the whole speech, but like, I get the good chills when he says that. Like, I mean, then he bakes people into pies, but which I also enjoyed. I'm not gonna lie, it was so cathartic. And my favorite chapter is actually the one where Davos talks with Stannis outside of Storm's End after Renly dies, and they're talking about Courtney Penrose and the different armies and the loyalty, and then he sails Melisandre in, because I feel like it captures so many elements. We're getting the perspective of the small folk, or Davos having been starting out his life as a commoner. Still has that perspective. We're seeing, the war strategy, the horrors of war, and also the harm that magic can cause. We're getting all of those pieces, and we're getting the historical lore about Storm's End being old, and that's why Davos has to sail Melisandre, and we're getting a piece about prophecy. I feel like that chapter contains almost every element that the overall story is concerned with, and it's just, and the end with the shadow baby is so freaky.
That is a very good point. That's a great part in the series.
Yeah, such a good chapter. And then I'll talk about Catelyn another day. I'm not trying to spice up your stream. I'll just leave it at I am a mom. I think Catelyn is a lot smarter than people give her credit for.
I'm a Catelyn enjoyer, so
I think people who don't like Catelyn don't like her because she's manipulative. I don't think because she's. I think that's the opposite of being.
When is she manipulative?
Just with, I don't know. I'm not an anti-Catelyn person, so I don't fully understand all their points. But some stuff with the warmongering and Jon in the very first few chapters.
So
Yeah,
I have seen some
I don't
some
believe this.
some anti-Catelyn argument, and I don't find it to hold a lot of water. I'd like to do a video on it at some point where I'm just like these criticisms don't make any sense. But I would say I enjoy Catelyn, so I think Catelyn chapters also have a lot of good fun stuff in them.
And that's where we get all the background and history. I mean, that's where we're getting, there's the stories behind these families.
Yeah, there's tons of really interesting stuff. And if you're like me and Captain Time, and you're a Littlefinger enjoyer, you get all of the context in Catelyn and Sansa chapters, and then people are always like hating on those two characters. And I'm just like, this is so confusing. Like, their chapters not only are good chapters and they're fun characters, but in their eyes, we see so much of the world that is like really fundamentally important to understanding all the scheming. So it's like,
right.
There's a lot of just like really good content in the chapters, and they're just generally good as chapters. But sorry, I can ramble about why Catelyn chapters are actually fun,
Yeah.
And the Red Wedding, and the Red Wedding in Catelyn chapter.
Right. I like you dunk on Catelyn. And you dunk on Catelyn chapters, but like the Red Wedding is one of the most iconic things that happens in the entire series, and that's predominantly her POV.
Because Catelyn's got some bomb chapters. Fucking this is like when does Renly eat give Stannis the peach? The peach. That's a Catelyn chapter, right? Like it's like there's a lot of great Catelyn chapters. And people don't.
One of my favorite scenes.
Yeah, people kind of forget, and they throw shade, and I'm just like, you just stop hating. But anyhow.
All right, random internet guy, I really appreciate you having me on. You guys have a blast on the rest of the stream. I'm looking forward to listening to the recording later on once it's posted.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for coming on and helping me answer your questions. This has been really fun.
Yeah.
All right. Well, do you guys want to move on to a new question? We'll answer this question here. What is your opinion on Sweet Robin's fanfic chapters, and do you have a favorite one at the moment? So
my question.
Yeah, Captain Time is highly involved. I am highly not involved. I just was never mega interested, and I read I think 2 or 3. No, I think it was 2. It was the Arya one, and the Dany one, and I just didn't get super enthralled with it really. And I guess my overall opinion is I'm still holding out for Preston's book. I think he was going to call it Dreams of Ghosts and Indians. I'm still holding out for the Preston book. So what about you, Captain Time? Though you actually are involved, in the server and stuff, and do that sort of thing. So what's your favorite fanfic one?
My favorite of the chapters, the hotel ones are really good, but I do really enjoy the prologue. That is my favorite. It's a very solid prologue. I don't know what else to say. As far as favorite chapters go, the Dany one would probably be the worst. Both Jon and Arianne weren't great. Hotel 2 wasn't as good as Hotel 1, but both the hotels are really powerful.
How many chapters are out right now? Just to clarify, how many chapters are out?
There's Arianne 3, Jon Con 2, or Jon Con 1. Jon Con 2 is coming out soon, I think, if it didn't just come out. Dany 1, the prologue, Elaine 3, Hotel 1, and Hotel 2.
Okay, so there's quite a few.
Yeah, there's 7 now, I think.
So Arthurian Historian and Amanda, did you guys have any opinions on the fanfic, and did you get a favorite chapter if you liked it?
I think it's all right. I haven't been following it closely, and I definitely haven't been like participating in any meaningful way, but I listen to them when he uploads his sort of reading audiobook version, and I mean they're fun, but I'm not super invested in it or anything. I mean, because it sort of is just the homemade copium since we're not getting wins.
did
Uh,
did you
I've
have a
been
favorite
in,
chapter of the ones that of you listened to? Did you have a favorite one?
um not really. I mean, I do enjoy the sort of Dorn storyline the most, I suppose. But I mean, nothing really jumps out at me.
Yeah, I did think Castle Uller, I believe, is the castle they're at in the Hota thing, was that I read. I do believe that was pretty fun. I liked that part. At Castle Uller. I think it was Castle Uller, unless I'm mistaken. It was fun. No, there was some fun stuff. Amanda, did you have any fanfic opinion really quick before we move on to the next one?
Yeah, I would say like I have mixed feelings because I didn't listen to all of them, but I was like, I think I listened until the Envoy. I think I didn't listen the last three ones. Maybe I listened to Ariane 2, but I'm not sure because if I listened, I was probably not paying much attention. But I did enjoy the prologue with reservations. I thought it was very like that was like written in a very like like Captain Time said, like it's very engaging. Like I really like the prologue, but with some reservations. I agree that Daenerys is probably like the worst because there's so much over the top things happening. The moment where she like does the fortune reading things like and that she like cuts her face with her nails like Catelyn did was kind of weird. I don't know, but there were like points that were interesting even in that chapter. And I enjoyed the Elaine chapters, even though the too much Sweet Robin standing is like we're gonna make Sweet Robin our king, and the shoe thing, I have the thing with the shoe,
it is
and they put the shoe there.
it is sweet. It is Sweet Robin's fanfic, so I imagine I imagine
But
it'll be Sweet
it was
Robin heavy.
it was more because of how it was done. Like I thought it was too like over the top how they chose to do the two things, both like the Sweet Robin standing and the shoe scene. Like I thought they were like I don't know, it felt too dramatic and like too many things happening in succession of another, and I felt like that could be done but with more like pacing. So I think that's my biggest issue with the fan fiction, is that I feel like there should be more pacing between like very dramatic things happening and maybe tone down things that are too dramatic, because it feels sometimes that they come out of nothing. But they're like the writing is good in many senses. The prologue is very cool. I enjoy seeing people like getting together to write a thing. I'm kind of doing that also with because I'm writing basically the book version of what happened in my D&D campaign that just ended, and it was very very fun. And me and my friends, we are doing like the book version, kind of doing like as a group. So I really enjoy seeing things like that. Like I really like to see people writing things and having fun. But yeah, it is a fan fiction. It has like some of the faults that normal fan fiction has. Like it's I think it's impossible to love like a media or whatever, like and not get too attached to a character and not want to hype up that like the chapters that the character is or something like that. So yeah, I a lot of people are like kind of I see people getting too attached to the fan fiction and being like, oh, this should do exactly how like the Winds of Winter should go, and I don't think we should like hold them to that because they're having fun and writing their own thing. But I understand the criticisms, and I agree with some of them. I think it's fun, and I think people should check it, even if just for shits and giggles. It's a fun thing.
So to roll on to a new question, who do you think of the major POVs will die first in the Winds of Winter? And this person says they think their guess is Theon or Asha, since we don't need two POVs following Stannis.
Hmm.
And so I'm kind of torn on all that. Who will die first in the Winds of Winter? That's an interesting one. Yeah, that's very interesting. Um, I part of me wonders if Sir Barristan will die early-ish on in the story. I really enjoy Sir Barristan. I'm a Barristan. I hope he doesn't die, but he's one of the ones I think might die pretty early on. I mean, Theon, yeah, maybe Theon could easily die. Asha could die. That'd be kind of a shock. I'm trying to think who else might. Like Davos dying is one that I've kind of worried about for a while. Do you guys have any opinion on this? Like, do you guys think that there's anyone that you just know for sure is going to die right out the gate in the POVs? I mean, Victorian's obviously a candidate for dying early on, but I think he'll be alive for a minute or two.
It's got to be Aeron, right?
No, it's Aeron's strapped to the bow of a ship. Aeron's going to live till the end of the story. Aaron's making it all the way to the end.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of think we might be overestimating, the amount of POV deaths, considering it's not as much as we tend to think, and like everyone's pretty sure John's coming back anyways. And I guess technically Catelyn came back.
Yeah.
Although I guess she doesn't really count. She's different enough that like when you really think about it, we haven't lost too many POVs. I think POVs might be a little safer than we like to imagine.
Yeah, I don't even know if there's going to be too many main die-offs of POVs in the Winds of Winter, but I think he said that there's going to be like somebody's going to die, like some people are going to die because he's got to fend it out. So I could see us losing a POV or two in the Winds of Winter. Like,
Well, he said that like the winter is when people die. Like that was the quote. Is like it's winter. It's when people die or whatever.
yeah, Theon and Asha, I feel like will be safe for a minute or two. But Captain Time, do you think someone is gonna like? Do you think someone is gonna die like out the gate? Do you think anyone's the most susceptible?
I think Aeron and then probably Asha. Oh, I gotta remember all the POVs. Shoot, Jon Conn's probably gonna die in the Winds of Winter, but not right away.
Yeah, that's what I think. Jon Conn will die in the Winds of Winter, but that's maybe too early. Who knows?
Like yeah, Barristan, a lot of people think is gonna die. Ariane could die. It would be kind of weird, but she could. Who else? What other POVs are there?
I mean, if you think Quentin's alive, do you think Quentin will come back and die in the Winds of Winter?
I think. Yeah, I think I do think Quentin's still alive, and I don't think his. Like, I don't think he's going to die just yet. But he could die in the Winds of Winter.
What about you, Arthurian? Do you think anyone's gonna die?
I don't know. I'm sure somebody will probably, but I don't know. I don't have an opinion on it. It's not something I've thought about before, and thinking of it now, I can't think of anyone that I would consider more likely.
I have a nerd poll from another server that had like a few hundred responses on who was most likely to die in Winds and Dream, but I don't know if I can find it.
Well, Amanda, do you have a prophesized death for Winds of Winter?
Well, I think Victorian and Barristan are probably the most likely candidates, and I am sad because I love both of them. Like I love their chapters, but all I want is them to have like an epic death. I want like their chapters, like when they die, I want that chapter to be very epic and memorable, at least. That's what they deserve. They deserve to be like have a very cool death. I am already like resigned. I already accepted. I went through all the stages of grief already that they are gonna die. So I'm kind of prepared to that, and I think that's gonna happen. Like Barristan is in a very complicated situation. and he's old, and he is too good, and he made some mistakes, and also he's too good to be around when like Daenerys come back. I don't think she's gonna have like a voice many voices of reason around her, the you know in the end game. And Victorian, I think he's gonna last maybe more. I think he's gonna make it like farther than people think, but I think he's gonna die by the end of the Winds of Winter. So yeah, talking POVs, because I think more POVs are gonna die probably in the later Winds of Winter, like the last chapters, or in the beginning of Dream of Spring, depending on who it is. Because I think Cersei is gonna be around for quite a while. Melisandre has to be around because she's gonna be looking at what Jon's doing. Tyrion has to be around. Like I think people, if there are people who are candidates to die, like Cersei's, because the books still think the Valonqar is a person and not bricks. So yeah, I think she's gonna last. Probably she's gonna make till the end of the Winds of Winter, and I don't know. Maybe I'm not sure, but I think Barristan is probably the most likely candidate to die.
So new question. Why does Theon ward for Ned Stark? Usually hostages are taken to prevent another uprising against the crown, yet Theon goes to Winterfell instead of King's Landing with Robert.
Because the North is the most directly impacted if the Greyjoys start to, like, politically, it just makes sense.
Yeah, so they're asking if, basically they're asking, is Robert just lazy just because the plot demand it? So you're saying it makes geographic sense.
Yeah, because if the Tyrells, the Martells, the other, I mean, maybe the Riverlands, maybe like parts of the Reach, if they go like aren't gonna care if the Greyjoys start doing crap again. Like the North definitely is, though, very quickly, because they're gonna notice that, and that's why it's there. And Ned's a friend of Robb, so it makes sense. But like, oh well.
What about you, Amanda? Did you have any thoughts on,
Yeah,
on that whole
I agree.
thing?
I agree with Captain Time. It makes sense. It makes geographic sense, and I agree with him.
Just because of location. Yeah, I mean, I kind of think that the plot demanding it thing is more or less why that's why it happened, because Theon was in the plot. But yeah, I mean, like if you had to think of an in-universe reason, maybe Ned requested it. Maybe Ned thought Robert was an incompetent loser and he didn't want Theon to grow up being a drunk or something, or he thought Theon would escape. I don't know.
I think it also might be a sort of a way to negotiate sort of the Iron Islands not being too not Iron Islandy. Because like when the Iron Islands complain about sort of the Greenlander ways, it's very much like the Southron ways as well. They don't like maesters, they don't like seps, yada yada. So like putting them in the north where the faith of the Seven isn't as strong and stuff like that is a way to sort of bring them into Westeros without being like, all right, we're gonna put you in the antithesis of your culture. Get used to it. Sucks to be you.
Yeah.
So sort of just putting them in the north as opposed to any other kingdom is might be seen as a little sort of less dramatic than bringing them right to the capital.
Yeah, that could make sense. I also think that if the North is going to be overseeing the Iron Islands, I don't know what point they were going to be more or less administrating or overseeing the Iron Islands, or supposed to be doing that. That also might have been why if the Ned's in charge of overseeing some stuff, that's why he's got Theon under him, and just in case he needs to chop Theon's head off or whatever, more direct. But yeah, that one I mostly I just think it's like, yeah, kind of that's just how our story is supposed to be, and so that's what happened in the world, and in the world that was just what was convenient for the characters,
Yeah, I don't know if the timing is right or anything. Like I could check that, but also like maybe Cersei just didn't want any other kid around because of course, like there's another reason there's a way more obvious reason why she didn't want Robert to raise his bastards around, but we know that Robert tried to bring Maya to the court, and Cersei had a fit about it. So
Yeah.
maybe that is also an like Robert wouldn't want like her to annoy him.
I could
with something like
say
that.
Robert just being outright lazy too, and just like he finishes signing the treaty and stuff, and he's just like pounds a fucking horn of ale, and he's like, "All right, Ned, now you handle that shit," and he just fucking boats off, just King Robert.
Yeah.
always,
Ladies and gentlemen,
leaving responsibility up to whoever is nearest by. So what theory being proven true would most disappoint you? And what theory coming true would most excite you? Well, I think the obvious answer for me on this question is it's going to be the theory that would most excite me would be if my theory about Littlefinger killing Hoster Tully is confirmed. my wild tinfoil concept. I think the rest of the idea that of how I presented is more or less just confirmed, but like that bit is totally tinfoil. It would be fun if that was confirmed. Which theory being proven true would most disappoint me? Obviously, Mance Rhaegar. Or Rhaegar Arthur Dayne. Either of those. If George R. Martin comes out and says those things, and he makes a response video to my videos, and he's just like, "This was not true. This person on YouTube is wrong," I will be very upset. I'll be very disappointed.
That would be wild.
So yeah, what about you guys? What's your thoughts on this one? Theory you most want, theory you least want to come true.
Theory I most want is probably, gosh, I know I've got my weird Sansa theories, but what about like, I know I definitely don't want R+L = J to come true because I think it just thematically destroys so much of the story, but it almost feels inevitable at this point with how much of the fandom believes it. As for theory I most want to come true, I probably something about like Lovecraftian old ones, or unicorn sex, I could say, because that's just such a great theory.
Captain Time and his unicorn sex.
Best theory of all time.
What about you guys? Did you guys have one? A favorite or theory you most want to come true, and theory you would least you'd be most disappointed if it came true? Yeah, I guess have one.
So I don't know if this counts as a fan theory because it is the story as told in the text if you don't read into it. And it also serves as both of my answers, in that it would both be my favorite and least favorite experience reading it. Is I really want us to like get deep into the story, and Jon is just Ned's bastard with Wyla. I think that would be great and terrible at the same time.
But there's no lie here, story. The no lie here theory.
Just
Ned is a 100% truthful man. we all read too deep into it. What about you, Amanda? What would be your favorite?
Yeah. I think my favorite is Euron is a failed Bloodraven student, and we're gonna get like an epic mental battle between Euron and Bran. Like, I really want to read a chapter where people are fighting inside their minds through telepathy and destroying each other's minds and things like that. I really think that it would be very cool to see like Euron being like showing like he studied. He went through what Bran is going through, and he knows stuff. I really want to believe that Euron was a student of Bloodraven, and we're gonna get like an epic showdown, an epic psych showdown. And the thing I hate the most is hard. Like, I don't know if there's something that I'm so against that I'm like, yeah, it would disappoint me, because I'm like, yeah, if it's well written, if it's well like explained, I'm open to accept it. But yeah, I think I agree with Arthurian. Like, if it's just Wyla in the end, like it's just a random, that would be like kind of a bummer. Like, yeah, Jon, it's nobody, it's just no one. Maybe Brandon Stark banged this random woman, and Ned felt bad and was like, I'm gonna bring this boy home, whatever. But it
So-
would be like so anticlimactic. Like he's nobody's son. Like Brandon is dead, and Wyla is just a milkmaid, and that would be like, yeah, kind of
So,
boring.
What would you guys say is the biggest plot hole in A Song of Ice and Fire? Because that's the next question. Do you have a biggest plot hole?
Oh, there's a few. I'm trying to think what's a good one. I mean, I always get annoyed with like how obviously the reader is faked out about the Lannisters being the ones to kill Jon Arryn in the first book, when like it makes no sense like how they act and everything. But that's like for the purpose of reader deception, and that's not a big deal. I'm gonna keep thinking about like plot holes.
What about you, Arthurian or Amanda? Do you guys have a plot hole?
I mean, so the obvious answer is Jane's hips and how he was like, "Whoops, didn't mean to change your hips halfway through," and all the fan theories about that got immediately crushed.
Yeah,
the Jane's
there-
hips
there's-
rabbit hole.
There is the cat's paw thing that I think doesn't fit very well, and
Okay,
also
yeah.
there's like one thing that Preston did the Dornish master plan theories and everything, but if Myrcella is just Myrcella and she's not being impersonated by her cousin in the chapters that Aris Oakheart is in, it would be weird because we know that Myrcella is like a child, and in that chapter I think she's described as like being 13 and already having like a womanly body, and like I think she's like 8 or 10 if I'm not wrong. So I don't know, I think the timing doesn't fit and it's kind of weird. So if she's not being like impersonated by someone else, if that's not a plot point, like I don't completely agree with the Dornish master plan, but if that's not like at least if Myrcella is being replaced is not a thing, it would be weird because the way she's described in that chapter specifically.
Yeah, if she's not
Yeah.
a double.
I-
Okay,
Go ahead, Gavin.
I really want to interject, but this will take a second.
Go ahead.
I
What's your interjection?
I typed this question into Chat GPT, and it said it cannot provide personal opinions, but here are some commonly discussed plot holes in A Song of Ice and Fire, and it listed 7 of them. So the first one is the others' motivations. The others, also known as the White Walkers, are portrayed as supernatural beings with unclear motivations. It is not clear why they are attacking humans and what their ultimate goal is. That one's okay.
Is that a plot hole though?
I don't think it's a plot hole.
Yeah, because I personally believe you can deduce their motivations, and I think there are people
Yeah.
on YouTube, namely Preston Jacobs. That's like where I've seen the best deductions, but I've seen other good videos deducing the others,
Yeah.
and like what they actually are. Like
Okay.
or like what motivates them before. So I mean, like there's plenty of material out there if you want to see, and then I know there's lots of deductions about what they're doing on Reddit. I just don't go on Reddit a lot.
Okay, second one. I want to get through these real quick.
Okay.
Littlefinger's plan, Littlefinger's grand scheme to take over Westeros seems unrealistic and far-fetched, especially considering the number of variables and unknown factors involved. It's almost like it's a fictional story.
Well, also,
There are a few plot holes around Littlefinger's
I
stuff,
think
but,
there are plot holes around Littlefinger, and I've heard, but I think deducing his plan once again, like I would say that I would say that's like that's what my video series about him is about. But I would say that it's not hard to figure out what his plan is, and it's not that he's trying to sit on the Iron Throne. It's that he's trying to destroy this particular family and part of Westeros that he was involved with. Like he's very localized. Littlefinger's like a laser beam. He's not like a nuclear bomb. Like
yeah. And what was the one?
But
like,
there are
how he
plot
got
holes
the
around
knife?
him. There are plot holes
Like-
around him, like with the
Like how
cat's
he
paw.
got the knife is one, right?
Yeah, the cat's paw has weird angles, and then there's also like Tyrion said he was gonna like do something about him, and then just totally fucking forgot, and then just never came up again. Like there's quite a few weird things with Littlefinger. And I mean, like that's Tyrion though. Like that could be a plot hole, or that could be Tyrion just like being a drunk moron, because like Tyrion gets a lot of credit, and sometimes he deserves it, but sometimes he's also like a totally fucking drunk idiot. So it's like, you know,
Yeah.
I don't know that Tyrion forgetting that he needs to deal with Littlefinger is like a plot hole. I mean, it probably is, but maybe that's just
Okay,
Tyrion being
okay.
an idiot. You know?
Okay, you're taking too long. Third one, Bran's powers. Bran powers as a green tier as warrior are not fully explained, and their limitations and consequences are not explored in depth. That's why we only got 3 chapters in A Dance with Dragons, and we're getting more in The Winds of Winter. Okay, that one's not really a plot hole though. Fourth one, Faceless Men's role. Faceless Men are introduced as a secret and powerful organization, but their ultimate goals and motivations are not fully explained. That is a good one because, yeah.
So
Preston Jacobs has pointed this out before. Why there's like never anyone at their church. Like they seem to be a very sparse religion. How Arya was recruited seems to be more of like a very niche thing. Even for Bravos, it doesn't have much traction. So if they're so like small but so highly regarded, like what aspiration? It doesn't really like line up with how big they're trying to play.
yeah, so the perceived size of the House of Black and White is kind of small. I will grant you that. However, I would say that the theory that they are working for the Aegon cause and that they like to, you know, be against the Targaryens, I think that that's got some weight to it. So I don't know that the Faceless Men are like I don't know that their objectives are like entirely impossible to deduce. I think that they more or less have an agenda that you can, you know, broadly say is anti-Targaryen, anti-dragon. And they
taking way
they
too long on
more
these.
or less serve people who don't like them. But anyhow, go ahead. What's the next one?
Okay, number 5 is the best one. Gendry's claim. Gendry's claim to the Iron Throne is not well supported, and his sudden rise to power seems unlikely.
Did Gendry rise to power in the books? This is a show thing, isn't it?
No, this is an AI. This is why you shouldn't be worried about Terminators killing you in your sleep. I just thought that was hilarious.
I'm like, did Gendry rise to power? I mean, maybe that's a spoiler alert. Spoiler alert: Gendry will rise to power in the Winds of Winter, and it will not make any sense because George is just writing anything now.
He's just using ChatGPT to write the Winds of Winter, and it's still doing a better job than Preston Jacobs. Okay, the Azora High Prophecy is number 6, and Dorne's role in the book seems disconnected. It's the 7th one.
So really quick,
we can skip on
here's
from
something
those.
interesting. So Mara DJ'd in the chat, and I think Mara commented a day or two ago or something. My memory's not fantastic, folks, but I think Mara commented like a day or two ago about the others, and so they're saying that they want to know what the others want. And like, so I will attempt to one day, I don't know when, but I'll attempt to one day make some kind of video about this because it is an interesting topic, and I feel like there's like 3 or 4 videos out there that you could watch that make it make sense if you watch them all together. Although no, I guess Preston Jacobs' Night's Watch series is longer than that, but it has a lot of these answers in it. So more or less, it would appear, and this is just my understanding, it would appear that a long time ago there was pacts to trade, you know, babies, likely bastards with the others, probably through the Bastards Gate, you know. And it seems like humanity over time has forgotten its obligation more or less, and hasn't been engaging in that, and that's why Craster is a thing. And with Craster not giving the others what they want, really, you know, and with the others, you know, not able to access Craster anymore, I think more or less the others want a resuming of the genetic trade. Like I could speculate on what they actually do with the babies. I think it's more complicated than the Game of Thrones TV show where they just touch the baby and it becomes an other. But like, I do think that Gilly's sister calling the others Craster's sons isn't bullshit. A lot of people have different theories about that, so there's a couple of different angles. But George R. R. Martin has written a lot in the past about the need for like population groups to not be stagnant, and the need for like in the book, like in the House of the Worm, right? Like 2 different types of people evolve from the same original type of person, and they're all people, like genetically speaking, but they're like very different to the point where like the grounds, the ones that live underground, have like no eyes and like multiple arms, but they can still interbreed. And so George R. Martin's like into this whole like idea of like, you know, it's sci-fi, like this whole sci-fi concept of like drastically different, almost alien appearing groups of people that aren't actually different. So to me, there's something going on in that vein. Or like he has a story called Dark where the tunnels, where like groups of people like separately evolve telepathy, I think is what it is, and they can like talk to each other, and they end up using communication to like meet each other, and they kind of their societies can meld. And it's like, you know, it's just so that's I feel like something similar to that is what's happening with the others, and that's what they're after. Like they're after perpetuation of their species. They've been having deals with people back and forth. And like I said, there's some pretty good videos on this actually out there on YouTube. Maybe I'll try to find them and link them. But more or less, I think the others are human-ish, human question mark, you know, human enough that they need some sort of interaction with us to keep their population group going. So I think that in the end is what the others want. Long side tangent. If you guys want to comment on what the others want, you know, you guys can feel free to comment on what the others want.
They want a hug.
They just want to. Yeah, exactly. They just want a hug. That's what they want.
Yeah, nobody tried to hug them.
I think that the others are in league with whatever drowned god or like Lovecraftian forces behind like the water ice magic side of things. I think the others also are fleeing something to their north. Like that's why Bran is afraid of the Heart of Always Winter. Like I don't think the others are the real threat. I think they themselves are fleeing something else.
There's something worse on the horizon. What about you guys? Do you guys have any opinions on the others, Amanda or Arthurian?
So not true in the slightest. I don't believe this, but I think it would be really fun if they just eat the babies. I think it'd be a fun,
and they're just baby eating monsters.
It's not monsters, but like we were talking about the House of the Worm earlier, and how like you know the grounds sort of develop away from people.
Oh yeah, and the Yogg-Lahai eat the grounds.
Yeah, they just eat the grounds. I think maybe they're looking for a snack.
They're just like that's their tribute. That's their tribute. They're like, we'll wipe you out unless you feed us a steady supply of the most delicious babies.
Give us some babies, and we're fine.
Very dark, very possible. So another question here, to roll on along. What are your thoughts on the Dornish Master Plan? And we were talking about the Dornish Master Plan just a little bit ago. So for anyone who doesn't know, the Dornish Master Plan is a Preston Jacobs theory about the Dorne not being stupid and useless, and I happen to like it.
Yeah.
I don't know if all of it's true, but I think that it's largely true. And I think that it definitely is a better explanation than taking everything that other people or Doran say about Doran or Dorne on its face, which I don't think is always the best way to go.
Yeah, like maybe we shouldn't trust everything we hear about Doran. Yeah, maybe Doran isn't completely useless, but my opinion on the Dornish Master Plan depends heavily on what you mean by the word master. Because yes, Dorne has a plan, it's really cool. And they've got a lot of ties and they've got a lot of strings that they can pull, but just because they have all of these strings and alliances doesn't mean that they're all actively coordinating all of them at the same time, like Preston Jacobs seems to suggest. Not that I think his Dornish Master Plan is one of the best ASWAT theory videos on YouTube. And I think it's very well grounded and very likely to materialize, but I don't think that just because an alliance or a connection exists means that it's actively being utilized.
Yeah, I think he's definitely right about half of it.
That said, I think that Doran Martell is not Littlefinger. He's not just an agent of chaos that does whatever he wants. He is a very calculated person who definitely has his next few steps planned out. So
Yeah, so
maybe it is more credible than I would give it.
the take that I think is one of the best about the Dornish master plan is the Kim Dissy philosophy take, and it's been a hot minute since I read Dying of the Light, so forgive me if I butcher this explanation, but in Dying of the Light, there is revealed at the end to be a character who has been more or less manipulating a lot of the events in the book. And he explains for a second that the way he rolls is the way of Kimdis, and he operates. Maybe it's not him. Maybe someone else is explaining it, but his methodology is explained, and in the methodology is this philosophy of the planet of Kimdis, and it's to make all the people around you fight so that you can like profit off that and get the shit you want accomplished done. And that's the take that I think is the Doran Martell take, you know, for the win, in my opinion. Like that one I think is a really good take. Doran Martell, I think Doran Martell is pretty savage too. Like the way I see him is that he just like fucking is using every piece of his family as a player on the Syvaz board. And he is gonna do everything that he can to make all the enemies kill each other, even if he has to, you know, sacrifice a couple pieces. But if does anyone else have a Dornish master plan thought?
I think that the phrase master plan is a little too catchy, and like they're all schemers. Like,
well,
yes,
I guess
there's
a
Grand
Dornish
Northern
plan.
conspiracy theory. There's a Tyrell master plan. There's a Greyjoy master plan theory. There's all these different master plans, like the Grand Maester conspiracy, the conspiracy of the Seven, or whatever that one's called. I don't remember. The Faceless Moon conspiracy. It's like, well, just because people are scheming doesn't mean it's a conspiracy. Like, just because Doran has plans does not mean that he's going to win, or he even has the best plans. It just means he's another good leader of a house, and all the house leaders are schemers, and that's why they're in the places they are. It's just, yeah.
So
like, people act surprised when they're scheming, and it's not really that surprising.
So another schemer based question. This is a two-parter question, I guess. This would be, explain why Littlefinger explain why Littlefinger is the missing piece to the Myronese knot, and then the second part is also untie the Myronese knot for us. People don't talk about Dany and Essos enough, and
I'm gonna send this one into Chat GPT, but in the meantime,
so
Littlefinger is the only solution to the Myronese knot. I love this theory. You're the best, or whoever you are.
I don't know that Littlefinger has anything to do with the Myronese knot, to be honest. I think Preston Jacobs pitched a fun idea that Penny works for Littlefinger, and he's like gonna use her to stop dragons or something, but I don't personally believe this. I don't think that that she is still working for Littlefinger or following Tyrion or any of that nonsense. Really, I just don't see enough evidence for it. I don't think she's a good enough assassin. Tyrion dodged being murdered by some pretty damn good assassination attempts, actually. Like, they're not great. I'm not going to say they're the perfect assassination attempts, but like, if you submit to the idea that the Kingsguard knight trying to kill him worked for Littlefinger. Trant, isn't it? Trant, or is it? Yeah. No, it's not Trant. It's Moore. So if
I got ChatGPT to solve it when you're done here.
So if you subscribe to the idea that Moore tried to was working for Littlefinger when he tried to kill Tyrion, I believe it's Moore, and it's because he comes from the Vale. Basically, the Kingsguard knight that tries to kill Tyrion out of nowhere isn't like a knight in the pocket of Cersei, as far as we know. He's like this random guy that Jon Arryn got put on the Kingsguard, which means, like, you know, who does he really work for? Probably Littlefinger. So Mandon Moore is the one who tries to kill Tyrion, as I recall, unless I'm totally fucking that up, you know. And that alone is like a pretty good assassination attempt. Like, okay, kill him when he's out there in the battle when nobody will be able to fucking figure out what happened, you know? So like that's pretty good attempt, right there, number one. I would say that's decent. But and then if you subscribe to the idea that Joffrey was not the target of the poisoning, and the poisoning was in the pie, which whether or not it's true, I think that there is a ton of evidence that does make that interesting and likely, then that would be a pretty damn good attempt at trying to kill him. And so, like, giving Penny a knife and having her, like, run at him in a bar, to me, just doesn't feel the same caliber. And I just don't see she would be staying in touch with Littlefinger, going to Marine. Like she would have to be a high caliber fucking secret agent, like way crazy good secret agent time, in order to make that all make sense for me. But that is a theory out there. I just don't particularly subscribe to it, so I don't think that Littlefinger is necessarily in the Myronese knot. And to untie the Myronese knot, I will need to somewhat ask a lifeline here to be reminded exactly what the Myronese knot is, because does that include the whole Uranus Dario theory? What the fuck is the Myronese knot phrase even mean?
Myronese knot is basically sorry, you can go.
So yeah, I was just gonna say, as far as I understand it, it was like a phrase that George used. But it seems like it's like a very much an out of universe concept where, because like Tyrion and Jorah are like mercenaries there. Quentin was doing his thing. Dany's there, but also Dany left, and there's the battle. It seemed like it was very much a sort of meta, like, how do I get all of these plot lines to play nice and not just be a bunch of disparate spreads. Like, it doesn't seem like it's a problem for the characters that need solving. It's like a problem for the writer that needs solving.
Yeah, okay. So it's just all the plot lines stuck in Marine currently. Have
you seen that
to
meme
untie
of...
the Myronese knot? Oh no, what's the meme now? I have not seen it probably, but what's the meme?
I've got to find it, but I think it's like a Borat meme of like every random side character in A Feast for Crows when they run out of ideas, and it's like, well, I guess I'll go find Dany now. And that's kind of what the Myronese knot is that every plot line is just going over to Essos, and it's kind of, once it gets there, it just kind of stops.
So
and that's happened with so many characters at this point that it's just like, it's not resolving in any way, because Marine's already a very complicated plot that's not really going anywhere. And then you're throwing in the Dornish, and you're throwing in the Greyjoys, and you're throwing in the Maesters at like some level, and all this stuff that's just, and the Valorists.
This might be a weird way of thinking about it, but I almost feel like George R. Martin is trying to explode the Myronese plot in order to catapult Dany out of Marine on the explosion. Like,
I love these analogies.
No, because I feel like Marine got to be bigger than what he wanted, and if he really wanted to do it diligence, Dany just wouldn't even be making it to Essos for like years and years and years. But like winter's coming, so like we gotta get her to Essos. He's restricted by his own artificial timeline, and so I feel like that a lot of these newer elements are designed to accelerate the plot or at least he's committing to using them to accelerate the plot a little bit, where he's going to try to get an event to transpire there that's so large that is going to carry her out of there,
I mean, she's already out of there though, so.
No, but she's not really. She's just chilling, and she's got to chill with the Dothraki for some period of time. Like she's got tons of shit to do, and then she's got to show back up and become queen again and lead everybody out of there. It's going to be all kinds of wild. And part of me wonders, like, if she'll show up like late, and if like only the Unsullied will be waiting, and like everyone else will have just left with like Victarion and a dragon, and they'll just be like on their way to attack Volantis or something. Because my theory is that I it's not just my theory, but my idea it would be that I think that Dany is going to end up attacking Volantis and then Pentos. Because I think that more or less we have to go backwards through where we just came in A Dance with Dragons. Like, we saw Volantis, and the Golden Company left from Volantis, so Dany has to catch up coming back through Volantis, and then like the next point that I think she's going to have to go through is where all this madness started at, which is Illyrio's mansion, because there's this Tyrion line where Illyrio's like, oh yeah, everyone in my house, you know, all my slaves, they love me, they won't ever rat on me or nothing. And Tyrion's like, oh yeah, wait till they put that on your grave. And I think that that's going to transpire. Like, I actually think that that's going to come true. I think that that all of this mess is going to roll back towards the people who started it, more or less. It's going to have a boomeranging effect here, where it's like, you know, they did this thing and they wanted it to go a way, and it's not going to end up going that way. And moreover, we're going to end up with an inversion, because we're going to get young Griff already landing, being a young Griff, you know, and then Dany's going to come in. But originally, I think the Vario-Illyri's plan, I think, was to have Viserys and Dany invade first and be seen as evil and bad, and then Griff to come along and be seen as good and cool. So I think we're going to get a very bad boomerang effect for them. And but that more or less, that's where I think Meereen is going. What does Meereen have to do to get there? Well, obviously there's got this big fucking battle. That's, you know, that's what's happening. That we got to have some big ass battles. Danny's got to wrap up some stuff with the horsey boys, and then we got to fucking march on Volantis, probably by capturing the Volantene ships and turning all of the Tiger soldiers to her side, because apparently most of the Tiger Cloaks worship R'hllor, and the temple is like all about endorsing Dany. And so like I feel like that's how Dany is gonna get, like, I feel like the Volantene ships coming they're not gonna have, like, I don't think Victarion's men plus the sellswords are gonna have enough strength to fight those ships and those people, you know what I mean? And take them all out. I think that they're gonna have to flip them, because the Tiger Cloaks love R'hllor and R'hllor loves Dany, apparently, according to the High Priest. You know, I think that's all that's gonna matter. And Makoro is there and in alongside Victarion, who's his new friend, and conveniently enough, Makoro was sent by the High Priest of R'hllor, and conveniently enough, the Tiger Cloaks like it all seems pretty convenient, I would argue. You know, I would argue there's some reason to believe, at least, that all those ships from Volantis and all those Tiger Cloaks won't fight Dany, and that they will in fact be headed back to Volantis, where the Widow at the Waterfront asked them to come. You know. It's also Jorah and Tyrion, you know, who just came from the Widow of the Waterfront. You know, like I just think that there's reason to believe the story's headed to Volantis. It's headed back like a fucking boomerang. It's gonna boomerang all the way back to Illyrio's mansion, and Illyrio's gonna have a bad day. But yeah,
I kind of like Rage Unicorn's little metaphor he put in the chat, that we should treat it like the Gordian knot, and just, you know, break out the swords and solve.
I saw that. How do you cut the mirror knot in half? Do you like kill half the just Thanos?
Just kill people.
That's what George R. Martin is doing. He just threw a bunch of Ironborn at it. The Ironborn don't know how to untie knots. They just cut stuff with swords. He had a Meereenese knot, and he was like, oh fuck, I'm knotted up in Meereen. Better call in these guys who don't know knots. Well, I guess they do, because they're sailors, but you know, but they also hate organization.
Like, but yeah, like, as much as I like the Quentin is alive theory, you know, it makes writing so much simpler in both of the Meereenese plot and, you know, the Dorne plot, if we just get rid of them.
Yeah.
You know, now we have a bunch of eyes around Dany. We don't need that many POVs. We can get rid of a few.
Yeah, Quentin
like
probably dead. Probably
like going back to people who might die, like that question from ages ago. Like, some of the answers people gave were Victarion and good old what was the nickname everyone called Barristan, something Grandpa, Sir Grandpa. You know, we don't need that many
Sir
eyes
Grandfather,
in
Sir Grandfather.
You know, we can Sir Grandfather. Yeah, we can get rid of a couple of them, simplify that plot, trim the fat. which again would be sad. I would like to see them stay around, but you know, as much as I wouldn't want to see it, it is the easiest solution to the problem. Is just, you know, end a few plot lines real quick.
So, moving on to a whole new question, unless anybody else wants to drop a comment on Marine.
Oh, I just want to say that how Littlefinger is the missing piece in the Marini's knot. Well, since you mentioned Penny, Littlefinger is warging her pig. That's all. I'm not gonna deliberate on that.
Littlefinger has been turned into bacon.
Little piggy, little little pigger.
Yeah, little pig has been turned into bacon. But gosh, the poor dog has probably been turned into bacon too. That's an unfortunate crew right there. They're not having fun.
He's gonna be turned into hot dog.
Yeah, hot dog. Yeah. So the next question: have you watched Rowan J. Coleman's channel? And if so, what's your opinions on his stuff? I have no idea who Rowan J. Coleman is. Does anybody know who Rowan J. Coleman is? Does anyone know this person?
Let me look him up.
No.
I do not. I'm looking them up now, and it seems interesting. So
yeah,
I'll
look
put
it up.
This on my long list of things to watch.
I'll look it up too.
I see a lot of Babylon 5 and Star Trek.
Rowan J. Coleman.
I see Starship Troopers. Let's go.
I see Farscape.
Elysium, The Matrix. Yeah, I've never seen this guy's channel, so I mean I'll watch a video maybe one of these days. Got a lot of things in the queue, but I will attempt to watch a video at some point.
Battlestar Galactica.
And I'll give you an opinion. So the next question is what motivated you to start making videos? What did motivate me to start making? I guess so. I had a funny idea about Bob's Burgers reactions to the My Hero Academia characters, and I thought it was very funny and that it would be quite, an internet success, and no one cared. And then I remembered that I had made a video a long time ago about why I thought this certain thing was true in A Song of Ice and Fire, because I watched a Preston Jacobs video one time. Like, I watched some Preston Jacobs, and years later I was just like, I have a thought that I think no one's done yet, and I made that video about how Howland Reed threw a net over Arthur Dane, and that there's actually like a bunch of textual support for this netting.
What?
Yeah, no.
I don't think I've seen this video.
Yeah, watch my original Tower of Joy video. There's a bunch of textual focus on how the Cranach men fight, and it's pretty darn like, I mean, you can make a lot of arguments, but to me, it's pretty darn implicit or explicit what happened. Like, fucking, like, Ned and Arthur Dane were in a one-on-one death fight. And then Howland Reed did something that saved Ned's life. And Howland Reed is never described as being armed differently or equipped differently than any of the other Cranach men. And the Cranach men have this particular equipment type, that they use. And they use these very specific things. And we hang out with his kids. And Mira uses the net over and over and over again to get out of these circumstances. She takes down the wolf with it. She takes down Sam with it. There's a whole commentary on like how effective frog spears are against armor, and Victorian has a big lecture about how effective poison arrows are against people in chainmail. And so I read all this stuff, and I have a theory about, I think that's what happened, that Ned was in a one-on-one fight as his friends, were dying around him and the other guys were dying, and I think that Arthur Dane was going to kill him, and Howland Reed threw a net over Arthur Dane, and then Ned Stark stabbed him, probably, based on the way armor works in real life, probably like somewhere in the groin area, and he died. And that's very not chivalrous and very uncool to kill the legendary hero of the century by shanking him in the groin when someone threw a net over him, and that's why Ned doesn't want to talk about it. I think Ned feels embarrassed because he killed more or less the greatest knight ever by stabbing him in the balls after Homeboy threw a net over him. So, like, that's...
Yeah, not the most like heroic story to tell your kids.
Yeah, that's my take on that. So yeah, watch the video. It was the first like Ice and Fire thing I ever did. But yeah, that's basically what motivated me to start making videos. I just had some thoughts, kind of just wanted to make a video. I don't know, just had ideas, just wanted to make a video. What about you guys? What motivated you guys to start making videos? What made you guys want to make videos?
It's a good
Yeah, for me,
question.
it's pretty much the same. I started doing my history videos first, just because I was really into history, and this was like a little before like the Vikings became super popular. So there, like nobody was that around where I lived was super into early medieval stuff. So it was like, all right, if I don't have anyone in real life to just rant about reenactments and history and stuff with, I'll just go talk to strangers online. So I made a few videos, and then because I was kind of late getting into the A Song of Ice and Fire fandom, like I didn't even start watching Game of Thrones until after it had finished, I think. Or no, I think I started watching like during right before the last season, like during that break year, and then I watched season 8 in real time. And I didn't get into the books until after I'd finished the shows. I stumbled to all the fan theories from channels like Preston Jacobs and In Deep Geek. And I was like, oh, this is great. But by that time, sort of the big swell of everyone being a fan when the TV show was on had died. So it was like, all right, I don't know anyone to talk about my crazy Song of Ice and Fire theories. Guess I'll go spread it on the internet. And yeah, so I just made a couple videos about it because I had no one in real life to bother with my theories.
I just want to say thank you to C Star really quick, who just gave me money, which is pretty cool. Thank you for doing that. I now no longer have to sell my kidneys for beer money. That was
Come on, I'm sure at the price of kidneys.
that was very cool.
Sure, at the price of
Thank you
kidneys,
for.
you could at least get a nice bottle of whiskey.
No, you'd be surprised. Kidneys are everyone's selling their kidneys for beer money these days. This is like the crumbling economy of modern America. We sell our kidneys around here. but thank you again, C Star, for real. And did anybody else want to share a YouTube why you started making videos story, or should we jump on to the next question?
I
You
think
wanna
I
talk?
like
Sorry.
hit my head one day, and then I thought it would be a good way to scam people, but never really panned out. So I'm just washed up and making A-spot videos. Stick with these weirdos.
Oh.
Yeah, someone just like lit a glass candle to me, and I woke up in a cold sweat thinking all the Tyrell's names are plants one day. And no, actually, like I was always like obsessed with like symbolism. Whenever I'm reading or watching something new, especially anime or manga, where like names really are like built to have meaning. Like I'm always like researching like the kanji and things like that. I always loved onomatology and like how you name characters so they mean something. And at some point I saw like George R. R. Martin saying that he doesn't know the characters until he names them, and that really like, oh, you shouldn't have said that. Oh no, you created a problem for me. I'm going to over obsess with this. And yeah, and then I spent a long time like thinking about it, and I thought it was kind of silly, and I thought like nobody wants to discuss this. But eventually, hanging around with the Interesting Nerd Club Discord and RIG's Discord, I realized there were people who were interested in such, random topics. So I decided to make the Tyrell video. I am working in the Martell video, and maybe someday I'm gonna do videos about like anime and other like types of symbolism, not only names, because I like I was mentioning with Mira, like heraldry and things of the such, how you represent characters through like symbolism. So I really like that, and yeah, I'm obsessed with that. And someday I couldn't just sleep, and I started to write about Tyrell plant names.
So another question by the same commenter here. What is the seemingly most insane theory you believe in? Which I guess is a little different than our theory when we asked before. And for me, I'm like, that's a difficult one. I guess the most insane theory that I enjoy once again would be R+L equals D, but Also, I think it's kind of a not popular theory, the idea that everyone's going to have to make peace at the end of the books, and then specifically they're going to have to make peace with the others. So those might be in theories that I think that are kind of insane, that I kind of believe. So what about you guys? Do you guys have an insane theory? As insane as the others will make peace, or as insane as Daenerys' real parents are Rhaegar and Lyanna?
There's so many tinfoil theories out there. How can we choose just one?
I mean,
Yeah.
if you got top three if you have to.
So, the one that I think is kind of most enjoyable, in a terrible way that proves I'm a bad person, is the Jon is an incest baby. I think that one's really fun.
Oh, this stream is definitely not safe for YouTube. What about you, Captain Time Amanda? Do you guys have an insane theory that you believe in?
Oh gosh, what? I'm trying to think. Like there being great old ones in the waters. Unicorn sex is always wild. Howland Reed isn't real. Sansa's gonna turn evil. What, like, magic isn't real. Aswaf is in the 6th age of Middle Earth, and it's just a fan sequel to Tolkien.
Aswaf is in the Thousand Worlds. That's one that I kind of a little bit.
That one's I
Oh,
thought
that's
actively.
so much fun.
I thought he actively said that's not true though.
I think what he said specifically was that in their old age, some other writers that he referenced felt the need to combine all their works into one universe, and he hadn't felt that need yet. But I don't even know if he specifically said Ice and Fire. He could have been like, yeah, I just haven't put Skin Trade in the Thousand Worlds yet, but Aswaf is. Ha ha ha, Martin. Like, I don't know if that's like what he was pulling, but I think that was the only comment he ever said anything about it, where he's like, well, I mean, I just haven't done the world combination. But he totally has. He totally has. That's why Bacalon's there. Like, come on, Bacalon.
What defines? Sorry. What defines an insane theory?
Just is it just crazy, like not popular, not believable, highly unlikely, just a wild theory, as tin as can be.
Yeah, I don't know if it's completely tin. I don't think it's tin, but it's insane in other ways, because the moment I hear insane theory, I immediately think of Euron warging the Dusky Woman. That doesn't make me feel very well.
Do you believe in it though? What's an insane theory you actually believe in? Unless you believe that that's true, that Euron is warging the Dusky Woman.
With Euron, you can never know.
Dusky Euron theory.
Oh,
yeah.
I just thought of one, but I'll wait.
Yeah.
Wait, so
I don't know if I believe it.
Joel the Dreamer, what was your comment on the Starks? Sorry, someone was in the chat was asking something, and I've been having a hard time keeping up with talking and watching the chat. Joel the Dreamer, what is your question on the Starks? Can you put it in the chat one more time? And then you guys can continue. If you guys had any other insane theories that you subscribe to, you want to mention before we move on.
I mentioned that I wanted I don't necessarily believe this one, that the Mountain or Sir Robert Strong has Robb Stark's head.
That would be interesting. That would be wild,
Yeah, I've heard that theory a few times, and I think I've met people who believe it. I don't.
Sir Robert Strong is Robb Stark's head stitched onto the mountain.
Onto the mountain with like Jaime's hand and like, yeah.
That's pretty fun, actually. I like that. That's fun. Sir Robert Strong. Ooh, wow, that's a wild one. I don't know how they'd preserve the head. Like, I don't know how they'd keep Robb Stark's head on ice for all those weeks, maybe, that they'd have to ride. Days, certainly. But I like it. I still enjoy it. they imported ice from somewhere and then made sure they had an ice chest on hand just for that moment, just for the head, so they could ice it up nice and good for Qyburn. All right, let's see here. What other questions? We're almost done with the questions from YouTube, and then it's just all the questions from the quiz thing or the submission thing. Is Moonboy the Valonqar? I don't think so, but fuck it. You know, it could be. You never know. I mean, maybe.
Or Moonboy for all I know.
Is Moonboy the Valonqar? Do you guys have an opinion on that? I don't think Moonboy's the Valonqar. I don't even know if the Valonqar thing is gonna come true. I mean that Cersei might die and be like, it wasn't the Valonqar. I shouldn't have believed in prophecies. Death. You know.
It'd be funny. I kind of would find it neat if like all of the prophecy comes true except for like the Valonqar, and then she just dies like normally.
Yeah,
like all her children die, and the younger, more beautiful queen shows up, and then like she just gets like, I don't know, she like trips down the stairs and breaks her neck, and she's like, oh well, rip me.
So Jesse Sturgeon said Jingle Bell is the stallion who mounts the world, but I mean, is that really an insane theory?
I think the definition of tinfoil's been diluted.
Yeah.
All right. So another wild one. Why was the pigeon Arya killed in Flea Bottom the true heir to the Iron Throne and Azor Ahai? And I don't know. Is this a riddle or is this a question? Like, you know,
I think it's
pigeon
just a
Arya
shit
killed.
well,
We know Ned warged that pigeon, right? Ned warged the pigeon, and Ned is Azor Ahai, and then also somehow rightful heir to the Iron Throne because he was consort. So he was consort, and because he was I don't know, reborn against Miss Salt and Smoke, because it totally fits. Trust me, don't look it up.
Yeah, they salted and smoked the pigeon and put it in the brown, and therefore it's Azor Ahai. And it's the true heir of the Iron Throne.
The effort to salt and smoke food for the brown.
Yeah, it's the heir to the Iron Throne because Ned was the real heir to the Iron Throne. They just gave it to Robert, and Ned is in the pigeon.
Ned was an incest child between. No, I don't even want to go there. Yeah. Just
there
move
you go.
on.
So moving on. No, moving on.
Joffrey's the real heir to the Iron Throne.
We're saving the stream from incest.
When Rhaegar said that they needed 3 heads of the dragon, he meant the pigeon that Arya killed, the pigeon in the pie of Joffrey, and a third mysterious pigeon.
Yeah, what is the third pigeon? The 3 pigeons.
The Ned pigeon.
The 3 pigeons. You will experience 3 pigeons. One of Christmas past, one of Christmas present, and one of Christmas future.
Yeah,
I was thinking like the 4 pigeons of the apocalypse.
The 4 pigeons of the apocalypse.
A pigeon to love, a pigeon to dread, and a pigeon to death.
I've seen so many memes about the House of the Undying visions because they're so like dumb that you can just say literally anything. Like you can talk to people and like House of the Undying speak, and it's just the dumbest thing, just to confuse each other. Yeah, like oh my gosh. 3 meals shall you have today. 1 to wake, 1 to bed, and 1 when the sun is overhead. It's like, what are you even saying?
1 when the sun has gone to bed. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just so dumb. But anyway, I need to focus. Be serious.
So
I actually should probably leave soon, and I can let you guys focus.
Okay. Yeah, you gotta go. No worries, no worries. This has been actually quite a long stream. I think we've been on for like 2.5 hours or something.
Wow,
Thank you.
The questions are long.
Yeah, this is. I know it's a lot of questions. So the first question on the submission thing that it gave me here. Okay, Captain Time left. Okay, bye-bye, Captain Time. The first question submission here was, what's up with Corrin Halfhand's insane actions? When he captures Ygritte, he figures it isn't worth torturing her, despite the whole quest being started because he got incomplete info from torturing a different wildling. He picks his quest members with care, except Jon, who's a rookie, doesn't know much about him. He's weirdly focused on the northern magic with the whole Trees of Eyes Again thing. And how did he come to the conclusion? Does he expect others to understand what he means, and is the whole quest, why was the whole quest so important? Okay, so it's kind of a this is a long question. It's kind of a multi-layered question. So more or less, the question is, what the fuck is Corin Halfhand up to, and does it make any sense? And I would say that Preston Jacobs' series on Corin Halfhand was the place that I agree with the most answers to this question. I think that you could make a good argument that Corin is intending to install Jon as a leader of the wildlings, or at least that was part of his agenda. So to me that made sense, because yeah, it's like he takes Jon and he clearly has like more or less the intention of handing over Jon to the wildlings. Like it seems like pretty cut and dry. Now why is Corin doing that? Maybe he has his own personal beliefs that we're not privy to. Maybe he works for Bloodraven, who knows. But what is fundamentally Corin doing? I think that yeah, Corin is intending to smuggle Jon into the wildlings. That's his whole objective. That's why he does all of the things with Ygritte and leaving Jon with her. And like he may have gone about it differently if Jon had chosen to kill Ygritte, but like I think that he's a pretty good reader of character, is supposed to be his thing. And so he like reads Jon correctly, you know. So that's what I would say to that question. But did you guys have thoughts on that, on Corin Halfhand? Did you guys have any alternate Corin Halfhand theories?
I agree with that. I think if they're trying to get information, you get much more information if you can get Jon or somebody to fall in with the wildling. So yeah, I think he's smuggling Jon to be like, all right, go be a spy for a while to tell the rest of the watch what they tell you.
Yeah, I agree. I don't want to like deliberate too much on that, because there's over 20 questions there that are very long. So yeah, I agree.
Sorry, I was reading the chat really quick. So Joel the Dreamer was talking about the Starks, and the way, because he asked the question earlier, and I was trying to answer the question, and I guess it's about the differences in Stark wealth. So let me see here. Yeah. Do you guys think there's any indiscrepancy in the book series about the wealth of the Starks? Do you guys think that that's a weirdness given to how they're presented? Like, do the Starks come off as too opulent?
Yeah, I never thought about it. I don't think so.
I mean, I think that like.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry, you're saying something, Arthurian?
Yeah, just like particularly like when you think in a lot of sort of medieval societies, you wear your wealth. You don't just, have a safe with a bunch of coins in it, like we sort of are used to, keeping all of our money in the bank. Like the way you store your wealth is jewelry. You wear your gold, you wear your silver. So, even if they're not, rich by the standards of the other lords of Westeros, like they're gonna have all of their fancy jewelry and stuff, because that's what wealth is in this world, more than it is, having a treasury full of gems or whatever.
Yeah, I saw the Starks as a bit less lavish than some of the other more extravagantly wealthy houses.
Yeah.
Like the Lannisters seem to be able to equip vast amounts of guys in like very personalized Lannister gear, whereas the Starks equip more like the household, retainers and like personal guards in like some Stark garb. But I don't know that they're Ned Stark's, decking out. Like the North is described as each house kind of has to deck out their own forces. Like all the Karstarks have their own shields and spears and stuff that I'm guessing are more or less, provided by the Karstarks. So I think that they're not portrayed quite as wealthy, though they do project some power, like you said, because they are a noble family, and you gotta project some wealth and power. So were we done talking about Corin Halfhand? Did we finish that one? Kind of got sidetracked. I was trying to answer those chat questions.
Yeah, I think so.
Um. So Bran says Lord Rickard Stark was beheaded. Jamie says Lord Rickard Stark was burned by Ares, but all he saw was a man in armor burned. That man in armor had golden spurs, the spurs of a knight. The Lord Commander Hightower was acting really weird after the burning, suspicious. Was Lord Stark a knight with gold spurs, or did someone else burn that day? Would this be the first time our author faked an execution? Davos wasn't executed, nor was Mance Rayder burned. So was the burning, or was the killing of Lord Rickard Stark a fake out? No, not in my opinion. Although I could be absolutely wrong. Oh, also the INC gave me a super chat. Thank you guys. Thank you guys. I don't know if that is Tom or Zach, but it's very, very cool of you to toss your wealth at me while I'm talking about things. um, so I mean, I'm like, yeah, I'd feel free to jump in and add an opinion here. Interesting, Nerd Club. The burning of Rickard Stark, the killing and beheading of Rickard, what was the fake out? Is this a false execution? I don't think so. I think that early on, George R. Martin didn't have as great of a formed idea of the separations of the North and the South. And there was just like, he wasn't thinking so much about knights being a from the sept thing. And, you know, he just like, was just like, oh yeah, he's a lord, got golden spurs, you know? Like, so I don't know that, I don't know that that is necessarily evidence of it being somebody else. But if you guys want to drop something, you know, do you guys have a comment on this?
Yeah, I'll agree with you that yeah, the golden spurs I definitely wouldn't worry about. Because particularly like if if they're associated with knighthood and the faith of the seven, like is that a distinction that somebody from the north who isn't in the faith of the seven is going to care about? Like, yeah, if you're from a knightly culture, faking, wearing these what would be considered signs of knighthood, when you're not a knight might be considered in poor taste. But if you're from a non-knightly culture, golden spurs might just be another way to show off. Look, I'm rich enough to afford golden spurs. So I wouldn't read too much into the knightly aspect of it. I think the beheading versus the burning is interesting. I never thought of that, so I might have to go back and look at those sections.
Yeah, that is interesting. I would maybe chalk it up to typo, but you know, who knows? There could be more evidence in there somewhere. What about you, Amanda? Did you have a opinion on
Yeah.
on the killing?
I don't think this is a fake out. I don't agree with that, but I really want to find a shit post to make this not believable. I don't know. Rickard is cold hand. I don't know. I just want to find.
There we go.
Some
Rickard
random...
is cold hands confirmed.
Yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to find a cool shit post for it because I don't really believe it. But if you find out something cool enough or funny enough, I'm going to listen to it. So if anyone believes this and wants to make a video about it, please link it. I'm gonna see the video.
So, new question here. These are a lot of these are really big questions. I wasn't expecting quite such large questions, but we're gonna answer them as best we can. Is it possible that we will see a character like Tommen or F. Aegon, so Fagon, or even Shireen sitting the Iron Throne by the end of the series? I feel like the books are becoming too predictable and that a set list of characters are poised to win. In other words, what other characters or in other words, yeah, what are the characters that an outside contender wins in the game? I'd like to hope that George R. Martin has it in him to make a really unpredictable ending. Okay. So the odds of one of like Tommen, Fagon, or Shireen sitting the Iron Throne, I all of them I don't see as super high. But the odds of it being a younger generation character, not necessarily someone who was important right away, yeah, maybe I could see some possibilities there. Although who knows, maybe it will just end up being Aegon and that'll be the weird twist. Did you guys have any thoughts on that? Like, do you guys think that there's going to be a particular winner at the end?
I like Tommen. I think that'd be a nice ending. I don't think it will be Tommen, but I think I enjoy Tommen.
Yeah.
He's the rightful heir. Uh, that'd be swell. I think realistically, I think Fagon has a chance to take the Iron Throne. Really have it at the end, I don't know, because obviously we're gearing up for Dany's invasion. Plus, I'm sure the others are going to sort of. There's a lot of changes in the power dynamics. So I think Fagon will take, or Aegon, whoever we want to call this nice young lad. I think he's going to take the throne for at least a little bit. I don't know if he'll have it by the end.
Yeah, I don't think this will happen, but I really like the idea of Fire White Queen Shireen, and I just think it's fun. And yeah, Tommen's probably gonna die because of Valonqar theory, Valonqar prophecy. But yeah, I really enjoy Tommen. I wish nothing bad would happen to him, but yeah. Fagan, I don't know if Fagan's gonna end up in the throne. I don't think he's gonna remain there if he ever gets to the throne. But I think probably like we're gonna see like someone from the younger generation having like a very important role in the end. And I really hope like that Shireen comes back in some way when she's burnt because oh boy, poor girl.
Yeah, I can easily see Fagon ruling for a minute or two, but not permanently ruling.
Yeah.
I just don't see that as being the main outcome of the story. So we've been streaming for like almost 3 hours now, I think. I'm gonna say we'll probably do like maybe 2 or 3 more questions, and then we're gonna call it good for this live stream, and we'll return at a later time to live stream again and answer the other like 30 questions that are unanswered. But here's one that's interesting. Who is Septa Lemore? So, do you guys have a Septa Lemore thing? Because I know that Company of the Cat did a Septa Lemore video recently that I thought was pretty darn good, and the theory was pretty cool. Like it made a lot of sense and it was fun. So I would say that's the theory that I've heard that to me makes the most sense. But I don't know if you guys have one that you've heard that makes a lot of sense for Septa Lemore. Like, do you have a theory, or are you totally uncommitted on the Septa Lemore is somebody theory?
I'm very uncommitted. I kind of hope it's no one. Just we have so many characters. Like the plot keeps getting bigger when we need to be wrapping up. I think it'd be better if we just she's nobody. Stop worrying about it. Is the answer that I kind of hope for.
Septa Lemore is no one. Yeah, so Roman C in the chat is saying that Rickard Stark is Septa Lemore. I'll say that. There we go. Rickard Stark is Septa Lemore.
Yeah.
The INC says Quaid is Septa Lemore. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I think I dig the Rickard Stark is Septa Lemore. I'm gonna use that as an answer.
All right.
Yeah, all I know is not Ashara Dane. Like I'm very convicted that it's not Ashara. And that's like I never like looked like I listened to a lot of theories, but I never found one that really like satisfied me with the explanation. And like Arthurian said, like we should be wrapping up, and maybe it's better if it's no one. It's just like a mysterious character. Maybe she's uh something more, something of this of a simple explanation. Sometimes it's better like then more and more conspiracy. It's fun to theorize, but yeah, I didn't think that much on that. Like personally, I saw a lot of theories, none of that it's really my jam personally. Just the worst to me is Ashara.
Yeah. So here, let's do another one really quick here. Will there be a fourth dragon entering the story? Some dragon that disappeared, like Sheep Stealer and Cannibal, New Dragon Hatchling, etc. Dragons at Winterfell, Knight's Fort, Dragonstone, Euron hatching a dragon's egg. Do you guys think that there will be any new dragons entering the story? I'll let you guys answer this first, because I have probably the most boring answer.
I like the theories of the Winterfell dragon and everything. Again, I kind of don't know what you would do with another dragon, to be quite honest. Again, just like we need to just again, I mean, part of that is the same thing I said. We need to be wrapping it up. Let's not add more dragons. So I really like the Winterfell dragon idea, but I don't know if I don't know if I'm convinced it'll actually end up meaning anything in the story.
What about you, Amanda? Do you have any thoughts on future dragons, like ice dragons or anything like that you think will pop up in the story?
Yeah, you know how like I think that Dothraki has this story about how the moon cracked open and the dragon came from inside it. That moon is Moon Boy.
So at some point, Moon Boy will crack open, and the dragon will
Moon
hatch
Boy
from
is
Moon Boy.
it's gonna be the true mother of dragons. Okay, I don't think we're gonna get another, but if we get one, I hope we get either like a cannibal moment or I love Ship Stealer. Ship Stealer is one of my favorites. My favorite of all of them is Grey Ghost because nobody cares about Grey Ghost and he's like just a nice dragon who likes to eat fish and is shy. And if we're gonna add dragons, I want the cute nice dragon to be around because he needs some screen time. But I don't think we're gonna get that. I would like to see like a Winterfell dragon, an ice dragon, whatever. I think it's all of those ideas are very fun. But like Arthurian said, like we need like to go quicker to the ending. Is there's a lot to be written already, and I know there's a lot of cool like ideas that George could play with, but maybe he could like save those for like other stuff. Maybe he could.
We need to cut
try
back on dragons, not increase them.
Yeah, maybe there are people like doing fanfics over like the future after the Song of Ice and Fire, like the kids of Dany and Jon, and they're like raising dragons and stuff like that. Not the best fan fictions are out there, but they're fun, and you can see like the people really read the books and they really like the universe. And maybe something like that, like maybe either like on Fire and Blood do something in the story of the Valyrians and their dragons back in the day, like how that worked. I really would like to see like some like record of how Valyrian society worked in a more like specific way, and how specifically because a lot of the dragons have they say they're named after gods, and we never knew, like we don't have any clue on how Valyrian religion works, and that really makes me interested. Like I really wanted to know how Valyrian religion works and what are their gods and how do they work. If their gods are dragons or they're like other types of deities. I would like to see like more lore on dragons in other places instead of adding more dragons to A Song of Ice and Fire.
No, I totally feel that. So apparently I misunderstood Joel the Dreamer's question, and thank you for tossing dollars at me, Joel. So let me get this right here this time. Hopefully I will not fuck it up again. You can always send another message here if I get it incorrect. But so you're saying, so why are the Starks richer in the show than they're portrayed in the books? Why the silver and white velvet? Why would they change the portrayal of the Starks? And so I not being someone who works in Hollywood, I would answer that question by saying especially in the first season, I wonder if they were on a much tighter budget restraint in terms of costumes and having to basically source from already existing material rather than having to have like new stuff made for the show. And then I also think that because they're doing a TV series, there's a greater imperative to show a big distinction between rich and poor and in this world, to make the lords very lordly, and they're just giving them costumes that are associated with our traditional conceptions of like medieval wealth, where it's like, rich folks, furs and silvers and velvets and shit, that's what they look like. And they're because like several of the things in the first season were kind of pretty book true. Like I loved Sandor Clegane's helmet because it was like a hound helmet, and that was like, yeah, it's what he fucking wore in the books. But I think lots of times, I don't know if they were always sourcing, from like just asking for stuff to be made brand new, or if they were just getting used costumes or some shit like that. And I feel like they probably were just trying to make the Starks look like a noble house without reading too deep into it. But did you guys want to answer that question? Do you have any
I think also like the show sort of is being just has different vibes than the books with their appearance. Like in the books, it seems very sort of late medieval, bordering on early modern at times, with again fancy doublets and like I think some people even have like the fancy ruffled collars and stuff that you get in like again sort of that late medieval early modern period, whereas the show sort of is looking more I don't want to say early medieval, but earlier, where you're not getting quite that sort of
Oh, okay.
Renaissance
So
level of fanciness.
yeah, I misunderstood the question again too. So he's saying that the Starks were richer in the show, richer than the show. The book Starks richer than the show. Okay. So once again, I would say I think that just comes down to what they had to work with in with HBO in terms of what they're doing with the television, and I don't know that the people in charge of the costuming are as diligently or if at all really reading the book series themselves. I think that in the writer's room, you could make a solid argument that they read the first book, but I don't know that you could prove that most of the staff in all of the other departments were reading the book. And I think, once again, not being a person who works on film sets at all, I don't know the answer to this. Like somebody who works on film sets would, but if it's anything like many other jobs, like if these are like compartmentalized tasks, like if you're on a job site and you work for like a landscaping contracting company and you're like a guy who digs ditches or something, or you're a guy who plants plants, like you might be working on a huge project, and you might not be getting the same information that the clientele is giving to the project manager. You might just be getting things down the line, just notes about what to do. Just like, here's your plants today. Make sure you plant all these plants in this location. You're not privy to the design of the actual, entire like, garden or whatever, or entire, project. And so I feel like that is probably true in the film industry as well. My guess is that the film department is sectioned off in such a way that costuming isn't required necessarily to read the books, and they're being given orders by directors and writers and such. But I could be wrong. So this would be a great question, just about how does the film industry work? Because are they taking their costuming ideas from vague notes from the writer's room and having to make it up as they go? Or is the director and the writer's room demanding that they read the books and give an exact replica? Because I would argue it's the former, not the latter. But did you guys want to answer that? I have a long-winded answer for that one. Did you guys want to answer that one?
I think I'm happy enough to stick with what I said earlier, where part of it is, like you said, I think is going to be budgets, but also again just going for a different vibe, where they didn't want all the later medieval, early modern stuff that we kind of get in the books. Because partially I think of that as like audience expectations. Like we probably wouldn't think of these people as being like medieval warriors if we saw them in fancy ruffled clothing and all the stuff that somebody from the era of full plate probably would have worn when they weren't in armor.
Yeah.
But like that would look very like fancy and dainty to us. So they're like, all right, we're not going to have them do that. We want to make them look like warriors.
Yeah, that's actually that's a great point.
More modern in perspective on medieval clothes.
That's a great point. The writer's room might be giving a direction to the costuming department or something like that, or like the director might be giving directions, being like, we want these Starks to look kind of, like you said, like rugged medieval. These are noble medieval warrior lords or something. And so, I don't know. I don't work in film, but I mean, if the person doing the costuming hasn't read the book and they're just receiving directions, like how good are the directions? That would be my answer.
That was done with like most of the cast, because like if you see like the books, like for example like Renly's armor, or like anyone's armor, to be sure, like most of them have like fancy colorful armor and things like that, or like the clothes are very flashy and they're very intricate, and there's the actual like this is a fantasy work vibe in the books when you look at the costuming. But in the series they wanted to go for like a sober, realistic, like, oh, let's focus on the politics, let's not make this look quote unquote childish. I think they wanted to make this look like, oh, this is very serious, so they
Yeah.
put Littlefinger in only black the whole thing, while in the books he's like in pink and purple with a lot
Yeah, he's got red
jewelry.
shoes. He's got red shoes and a yellow cape and shit. He's fucking got all kinds of fly shit.
Yeah. The man.
So
Varys wears makeup. And...
Ruben says that it's likely the heads of the art department would have read the books, and then if that's true, I would say then yeah, I guess again this could also point to it being another, like we were saying before, creative decision where maybe they read the books and they said, no, we want the Starks to look a little different. Like you were saying, Mandy, they wanted a different, more dark, sober, fucking medieval vibe, I guess you could say, whatever you want to call it. How Hollywood imagines dark, sober medieval shit to be, which is not very accurate.
If I'm not making this up, and I don't think I'm making this up, I think I saw one of the two of them, like D talking about like how they wanted like the series to be more like suited for any public that wanted to watch, that it wasn't about the fantasy, so they didn't want to focus that much on like things that could like make people like not interested, like not nerdy people interested. So they like toned down a lot of things because of that, because they wanted to make it like sober and about politics and about like, oh, this is a very, very serious kind of series. And I get that, but it's a fantasy series, and I wish we saw Rainbow Littlefinger and things like that.
Yeah, I wish there was more color. That is, so my favorite parts of House of the Dragon are, in terms of the costuming, are the parts where everyone has a bunch of color, all the fancy, bright, colorful shit. And then my favorite parts of Game of Thrones, the first season at least, the one I remember watching the most, was like the tournament, because Loras has some cool armor, and then they the Hound has some cool armor. There was just some good stuff, and I thought that there were certain points at which the costuming is at its heights, and those are when it's at its most fancy and wacky and out of control.
Yeah. I missed the color. Like they took the color and the fanciness from everyone. Like not only the Starks. I think the Starks, most of them, because I think it's also part of painting them as the heroes, like the good guys, because since the Lannisters are gonna be like the lavish, asshole rich people, we're gonna like tone down the Starks to make like a contrast between them. Like you get some of that contrast in some of Ned's scenes in the books, like where he's like, oh, why is everyone so dressed up in this council? Why? What? But in the series is the contrast that I think they did it with everyone, and it's in a more like dramatic way. Like you can see like how different, like how intricate like Cersei's headdress and dresses are compared to like Catelyn and things of the sort. So I think that also makes them look humble, like they're less shallow and caring about like riches. So that also adds to the idea of those are the heroes, those are the good people.
So Joel, the dreamer, was saying that white velvet and silver jewels was kind of the Stark look in the books, and yeah, no, I think that's more of that sort of that medieval flair that George R. Martin was going for. Like people in the books, that they do dress pretty flamboyantly, and they do like he seems to like a lot of the wilder appearances. He likes a lot of the more, I would say, like darker fantasy appearance kind of stuff too, and the like, like all the Ironborn, they're all in chainmail and leather, and nobody ever wears anything colorful. Even though that was very untrue of Vikings. Vikings wore lots of colorful shit. But his take on the Ironborn, who are definitely Viking inspired, he goes for the opposite, where they don't have a lot of color necessarily. But I think a lot of the more noble houses, their thing is like they have like a color, like the Tyrells have green, and like they're all this lavish green shit. The Starks are like white, and they have lots of white flags, white silver, white gowns, gray shit to go over it with some furs and silver. Like he's kind of almost making it like easy to identify in terms of giving each team one color, but they're doing that classic medieval thing of enjoying the color, enjoying the clothing. And then when they talk about, I think it's like the Redgrass Field, maybe it's a different battle or something. No. It's Dantos, and Dantos is talking about what was it? The Battle of the Blackwater, and he's like, oh, the banners, and it's like it's because there's all this colored banner shit everywhere. And so I think that Martin does understand that people liked to dress up, and liked to represent their houses through colors and stuff back in that time period that he's referencing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Joel is saying, so Ned commanded the council to wait till he was dressed in what he called his council silks in the books. And I don't actually remember that. This must be one of the early council meetings when he's just come to King's Landing, or is this a later one? Do you guys remember that, where he's actually getting dressed in council silks? Is that a part you remember in the book?
I don't remember that either. I mean, I'm not surprised. I don't think we should read too into that. Like, imagine if you were like, if someone's like, "Hey, come to this important business meeting," my first reaction, if they caught me randomly walking down the street, would be like, "Give me a second, I need to, get into a suit."
Yeah.
I think dressing the part is yeah.
Sorry, you were saying you said dressed in the part.
I don't know. Yeah, I wasn't really adding it. Yeah, I mean, and particularly if you think of a medieval society, you know, looking the part is more important. Like I'm sure we could get away with more casual dress in most settings than like a medieval person would.
Yeah, I think Melisandre brings this up too. She talks about how Jon Snow doesn't like to dress up fancy, and he needs to start dressing himself and keeping different chambers because of how it reflects, like having an entourage, keeping your chambers in a certain place, dressing a certain way, is the trappings of power. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if that's what is being talked about when Ned Stark, is putting on his council silks. He's like, okay, let me get my nice outfit, before the small council. And he has, like, obviously all the Starks have a fuck ton of clothing. Everyone always gets one outfit in the show, but they have a fuck ton of clothing in the books. There are tons of outfits. So Joel was saying it is the first council meeting when Ned Stark goes to get his silks. And he says he prefers the books more colorful and medieval, which I definitely agree. I definitely agree. I like the way things are portrayed in the books better than they're portrayed in the show. The Hound's head helmet aside, the Hound's head helmet was one of the things I just loved about the first season. I was like, that Hound's head helmet is so cool. So Mira Reeds jump back in the chat. I don't know if you're there, Mira Reeds. You went mute for a second. But we're doing a couple last questions here.
Yeah, I took a brief excursion to go to Chuck E. Cheese, and now I'm back.
I forget Chuck E. Cheese is a thing, and then I get reminded, and I'm like, oh my god, that's still a thing? I'm like, no way. I was at that when I was a child.
The viewers can't tell whether or not I'm joking. I'm not joking. It was Chuck E. Cheese, and that was actually pretty cool.
We used to have like a very similar one here called Captain Kids, and years later I made friends with and used to hang out and smoke the reefer with one of the son of the guy who owned it. He was like, yeah, we were kids. My parents owned Captain Kids. We had to play the games whenever we wanted to. I was like, that must have been fun.
That's amazing.
Get to run around the Captain Kids place after hours and just fucking just throw balls at whatever or play any of the games for free.
There was one called Jeepers near where I grew up, and I guess they have them in Michigan too. And there was like a real roller coaster. And it was tiny. It was like a little kid roller coaster. But they had the real rides inside, and it was the same with the games and the pizza and the creepy animatronics.
I don't know.
Anyway,
I don't know. I don't know if it's just me, but did anyone else? Amira, you're coming through on my end, kind of like
Yeah, it's
like-
cutting a bit.
like an auto tuner. It sounds
Yeah.
kind of musical.
Yeah. She's stuck
You know
into
what?
it.
It's probably my setup. I can dip back out if the sound is bad.
No, you're fine now. It was just funny because there was a bit that it sounded like an auto tune track for a second there.
Yeah,
so-
she was stuck in 2005 for a moment.
So since Mira's here, I guess we'll
T-Pain.
go just yeah, T-Pain. Where I made a post the other day about I enjoyed watching the Boondocks when I was younger, when it was on Adult Swim, and if you guys remember, there's one episode where Thugnificent, one of the main characters, like, wasn't the main character, like side character rappers, he's like writing a new album and he wants to try to remain hip and fresh, and so he throws the auto tuner on like every single track, and Riley's like listening to it with him, and he's like, I don't know about that auto tuner, man. Thugnificent's like, no, it's so cool, it's everyone's using it, you know. I always think of that whenever I think of auto tuners.
I was gonna say I was like I'd want to give a shout out to another YouTuber. Sideways has a great video about autotune that everybody should go check out.
Oh, okay.
I don't even think he's making videos anymore. The last one he put out was like a year ago, but his autotune one is really good.
Well, there's a cool video about auto tuners. So
I
since
just wanted.
go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, it's stupid, but I have like once I was like talking with some friends that they didn't read the books or watch the series, so I was randomly talking about the rat cook thing, and Wyma Manderly and stuff like that, because I use some of these experiences for another RPG game, so I was explaining them the context. And one of the friends were not like listening to the story. He was doing like something else, and he entered mid conversation. And I was like, "Oh, you know, the rat cook and whatever." I don't know what part of the story I was talking about. And then he just like, "Oh, the Americans have that like is the Chuck E. Cheese thing." Chuck E. Cheese thing.
Chucky from Chuck E. Cheese is the rat cook. Oh no! Oh no! I'll never drive by another Chuck E. Cheese and look at it the same.
Yeah, and every time someone brings up Chuck E. Cheese, I either think about that or the chunky cheese.
Oh Lord!
And both of them are not good for my brain,
Oh
but
Lord!
whatever.
Oh Lord! Chuck E. Cheese is the rat cook.
Someone listening to this madness, please make an artwork of Chuck E. Cheese being the rat cook, please. someone do it, a fan art.
Rat Pizza and Child Casino. There are games under the night fort. Yeah.
there are token driven games at the bottom of that well under the night fort. That's what they're hiding from you with the your wood door. they're hiding all the token games. Oh Lord, that would be a great drawing though. The Chuck E. Cheese as the rat cook would be a great drawing. So Mira, since we have you here, we should do a couple more questions, and then I was gonna end the stream just because it's been going on for a while, and I am quite hungry and need to eat food.
I mean, if you wanna end on Chuck E. Cheese as the rat cook, I don't know if we're gonna get a better joke than that.
No. We'll do one or two more. Although that was a highlight of the stream right there. That was certainly a highlight moment. Was the Chuck E. Cheese as the rat cook?
Oh, don't ask where the pepperoni comes from.
Oh,
So I'm just gonna grab.
it's Jojen.
I'm just gonna grab.
Jojen
Oh
pizza.
God, Jojen Roni. I'm just gonna grab a random one here that I think will be interesting for conversation. Was Robert Baratheon a decent king? Was Bobby B of all people, in spite of being a not so great human being, at the best of times, was he a decent king?
I've
alright.
got some thoughts.
Go ahead. Give me your thoughts, and then
Yeah.
I'll give my thoughts on King Robert.
So one of the things that Gurm gives us in Fire and Blood is the idea that the best kings are the ones who take advice from other people, especially people with other perspectives. We see that with Stannis and Davos. So I would say I can't call Robert a bad king because he handed the kingdom over to Jon Arryn,
Okay.
and Jon Arryn was a good ruler.
Pretty
but
decent
the
administrator.
bad decision that the way that Jon Arryn messed up was hiring Littlefinger, who bankrupted them.
Yeah. So questionable. I mean, Robert was definitely. You could definitely say Robert was attempting to be a good king by hiring Jon Arryn. Jon Arryn was just a moron who hired Littlefinger. What about you, Arthurian?
I mean,
Or no, was that? Go ahead. You more?
like I was gonna make a joke. Like, oh, what a jerk listening to his wife. How dare he? Because it was Lysa who recommended him.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, Littlefinger definitely did have a stealthy approach by being able to get his wife, who Jon Arryn more or less did seem to want to make Lysa happy. Like, I think he understood that it was a weird position, and he did seem to be like, well, I'll just try to throw money and time at the problem while being a cold old man. So Littlefinger had a pretty sneaky approach. I will say, like that is a good way to get at the hand of the king. That maybe that Robert didn't have that foresight, that he didn't go, oh, Jon Arryn's gonna be susceptible to Littlefinger, So, what about you, Arthur? Did you have any opinions on Robert's kingship? Was he a good king, bad king?
I kind of agree with what everyone said. He was fine. I'm sure he wouldn't make a great ruler, but he kind of knew that and just was like, all right, you people run the country for me. I'm gonna go drink and whore, and I can respect that.
We're just letting go of the wheel, and hopefully someone better can take it. What about you,
Yeah,
man?
but he picked good counselors, like other than Littlefinger. Like everyone's, and like I mean, sure you do have the schemers, but like people were saying, Aaron was good, Ned was good. Like he's picking good people to run.
Yeah, he's more or less he's trying. They might not actually be the most qualified, but in Robert's mind, he's attempting to pick qualified people to run the place. I can see that. I can see that. He's at least attempting to pick ones that he thinks will make the kingdom be good and prosperous and functional and yada yada yada. What about you, Amanda? Did you think Robert was doing a good job at being king?
Yeah, I wouldn't say a good job, but I agree. Like, he was attempting to put like people who actually could do the job, since he was not interested in doing it. He actually, like, being a person that is not interested in doing a job, he was, at least worried enough to find people who were able and interested on doing it. So yeah, I agree that maybe not necessarily a good king, but he was attempting to do like reasonable choices in that matter. And yeah, I think he could do a lot worse for a person who is not interested in ruling.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, especially when you can see like that, his personality and his interests and his knowledge of things, like, in retrospective, thinking of all of that, he could have been a lot worse. Of course, like, we have some issues that he liked to spend a lot with a lot of things, and he pressured like Jon with some stuff, like and that was a problem. But also, like, he could have done a lot worse, and people who came after him did worse jobs. So yeah, like people who came before and after him, like, you have like all kinds of parallels with the Targaryens, especially with like people who inherited a peaceful good kingdom and managed to fuck it up. Robert like assumed after rebellion with like being the an usurper and everything of that sort. He could have done worse. The kingdom could be in a way dire situation. And I think he managed well. Like he realized he wouldn't do a good job. He wasn't really interested in learning to do a good job. He found people who would do that, and he thought they were, responsible and trustworthy enough.
Yeah, I would say so. I wanted to mention, so Joel the Dreamer sent a super chat here. Said the Targaryens were great or dreadful. Robert had one quality the Targaryens never had. He was average and mediocre. I would say there were some really average, mediocre Targaryens, but when it comes to kinging, yeah, I don't know that Robert was like kinging in a way that was particularly standing out. But that, like, so I think like people have been saying throughout this whole little in-bit on Robert, I think that's more or less not necessarily a horrible thing. Like, I don't think Robert was a fantastic ruler, but he at least did attempt to pick people to administrate for him that he thought would be successful. And more or less, he had a few decent reads, and then he had some really poor reads. So I wouldn't say that he was a tremendously awful king, but I wouldn't say that he was a great king. I would say that, yeah, he was kind of a absent ruler who at least was, intending to pick some people to, to hold down the fort. But he was much better as a warrior and a hunter than he ever was as a king. And that's saying a lot considering he got gored by a boar in a hunt. So, well, do you guys want to answer one more question here? Do you guys want to do one more and then
Yeah, let's do it.
we'll wrap it
Yeah,
up?
let's do it.
So, okay. The difference between a high harp and a wood harp. I was looking forward to answering this one because it's so random. So what is
this is one I have strong feelings about.
So, Arthurian, what do you think? What's the difference between a high harp and a wood harp? Because I have an idea, and I want to know if it's the same idea as yours.
I think the high harp is what we think of as a harp today, like the big standing thing with tons of strings.
Yeah. Sit down, big sit down harp.
Yeah, and the wood harp, we see people carrying them around a lot. And like Tomo Sevens is, he has a bunch of nicknames to explain the sevens, but one of them is it's 7 strings because his wood harp has 7 strings. So I think the wood harp is more what we would like consider a lyre today.
Yeah.
And even in Old English, like the harp originally applied to a lyre, and it's only like later in the Middle Ages when lyres fall out of fashion and modern harps come into fashion that the meaning changes and we have to retroactively add the lyre instead of the harp for the instrument we now call a lyre, the small 7-string ones. So yeah, I would say that the high harp is like a more modern harp, and the wood harp seems to be something more in turn with what we would consider a lyre.
That was exactly my take, to be honest. I think the high harp is the big harp, and I think the wood harp is the lyre. Only the highest quality harp content on this channel. What about you, Merritt? Did you have an opinion on the harps? High harp versus wood harp?
I had the exact same thought, and I did think it was weird. In the first book, I think it's in an Arya chapter, she says about Sansa knows how to play the high harp, and I was like, since when? They have that at Winterfell? She had a teacher? But that may have just been like an early book thing. But yes, I agree with everybody else.
Martin needs some cool filler. I guess she also knew how to play the high harp. What about you, Amanda? Did you have a...
Well, all I can say is that in Portuguese, harp applies to the both instruments. But yeah, if you want to specifically say the small one, you're going to say that the word for lyre. So yeah, I agree. And if anyone wants to learn what is Portuguese for lyre is lira. So hello. Portuguese for you.
That makes sense.
Well, there we go. So I think, yeah, we're all in agreement about what makes
it's a cognate.
Yep.
And with that, I think that we'll probably wrap it up here because like I said, I'm hungry. I gotta eat, guys. I'm sorry. I'd keep going on the stream, but I need to make food. So so thank you everyone who is viewing the stream, who came to visit and you know, came to hang out and have a good time with us. And thank you to everyone who gave super chats. I was surprised. I wasn't really expecting that, but it's very cool. And that's very neat. I'll have to buy some kind of delicious treat or something ice and fire theme. Maybe I'll buy a book. but thank you.
You could put it in the fund for getting a Hound's Head helmet.
There, that is an expensive fund, but I honestly would love that. I probably could get a armored combat legal. Well, no, not like in the cool leagues, but I could get an armored combat legal in the American Beer League hound helmet, and I would totally wear that shit. Totally wear that shit.
Oh, I can't wait.
One day when I'm quite wealthy, I'll buy it. What were you saying?
Am I allowed to pick on people in the chat?
Don't
be mean to our viewers.
Don't be too mean, but but yeah, go ahead.
So I noticed MJ Jetson says when talking about King Robert that he sat on a preventable succession crisis that he didn't resolve. And I disagree with that, and I think this is part of one of my hot takes, and I think I mentioned it in your Discord server once in one of the text chats. That Robert did everything right for the succession, and Ned is genuinely guilty of the treason that he's accused of. Because so we know, like from Fire and Blood, that like there is a history of people declaring, like naming people their heirs, even when they weren't who we would naturally expect to follow. And like, yeah, that does cause problems, like notably, you know, the Dance of the Dragons. So, you know, we have this idea that Joffrey's not the right heir because he was illegitimate. And, like, that's theoretically true, but he names Joffrey as his heir. So even if he wouldn't follow the normal line of succession, because Robert stated, you know, until Joffrey's heir, comes of age, like, I don't think the rest of it matters anymore. He's named an heir. That is his heir. And so he resolved the succession crisis by naming an heir. And it was Ned who did commit treason by making a false proclamation to change his heir.
Mira reads.
So I think the succession crisis is Ned's fault, not Robert's.
Mira reads, this is going to be one of the cases we try in Ice and Fire Court. And by the way, people in the chat, there's been a discussion, and we're going to have Ice and Fire Court trials. It's going to happen. It's going to be a thing. They'll be...
Oh yeah, I guess this is the first official announcement. There's a group of us that have been collaborating through the Interesting Nerd Club, and there will be, I think we're going to have one big trial, and we will also have a series of summary judgment hearings, you know, like rulings from the bench. But the big trial, we're going to have witness testimony, and I guess chat's going to be the jury.
Yeah, if we can, that would be fun. I would love to do a live one, but if nothing else, there'll be some recorded ones. Or
we could have a vote.
But I think
like
a live trial would be fun if we actually got chat to be jury. That would be pretty cool. So
yeah, so we're going to start with the summary judgment hearings, get everybody hyped, and so we can practice our legal skills in the bench rulings, and then the big event will be the live trial, and chat will be the jury. And I'm the judge.
That sounds really good.
I've already made this.
So you guys heard here. You have fun stuff to look forward to with us doing weird trials in the future. And then if everyone wants to introduce their channel one more time, you know, and just tell everybody where they can find you, we'll sign off here. So why don't you start us off, Mia Reeds, and then Arthurian and Amanda, you guys can give your channel information if people want to come see where you're at.
Yeah, thank you. So I am Mira Reads, MEERAREADS, and I just said hi in the chat as well. You can find me here on YouTube. I'm currently working on a series about Oberyn Martell.
So I'm Arthurian historian. I post not frequently, but every once in a while I actually remember I have a channel and I post some real world early medieval content. And I've been working on a series on a Song of Ice and Fire through the lens of real medieval history. So it's lots of fun, and hopefully I'll start uploading more now that I have a bit more time. So you can find me at Arthurian historian here.
You can learn about the Corcaligda, and you can come back and leave a comment telling me all about the Corcaligda. All right, Amanda, do you want to give us your information?
Okay, to everyone who doesn't know me, and probably most of you, I am Mandy. I have a channel called Nefanda Astra, NEFANDAASTRA, where I do analysis on the names of characters. At the moment, I only have one video up, but I'm working on my next one. And it's basically about the names of the characters in the Song of Ice and Fire, and also beware drinking the weirwood sap in Chuck E. Cheese.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining me, and so thank you everyone who came on the stream to watch. This was very fun, and I imagine that we will do this again at some point to answer more questions, and maybe if there's a different topic or something like that, or if there's something, if you'll put in the comments or something like that they really desperately want to hear, and it's like a really long-winded topic, maybe we'll have another big discussion or something. But until then, thank you everyone for joining me, and I will see you guys next time.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
It was a
thank
great
you.
time.
It was fun.